Okay, I suppose it's time that we get started. So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for day one of a two-day conference on the present state of biomarkers of human longevity, hosted by the international nonprofit consortium and decentralized longevity industry knowledge and collaboration platform, Longevity International. My name is Franco Cortez, Director of Aging Analytics Agency, and I will be your moderator for today's talks and discussions. Biomarkers of human longevity has been a strong strategic priority for Aging Analytics Agency and its parent consortium, Deep Knowledge Group, for a number of years now. Besides being one of the global longevity industry's most underrepresented yet disruptive sectors, we also see it as the lowest hanging fruit and most ideal solution for a number of very important areas in the industry's continued growth and stability, and is the critical catalyst for developing a more sophisticated method of validating longevity therapeutics and lifestyle interventions, for optimizing investment decision-making, translating longevity R&D into practice, and for formulating and executing longevity policy and governance. It is against this backdrop we'll be hosting today's discussions. We will also be unveiling two publications today. A new open access special analytical case study produced by Aging Analytics Agency for Longevity International on the present state of the biomarkers of human longevity ecosystem as of Q4 2021. And that is available at longevity.international as part of our ongoing effort to distribute the most actionable fruits of our analytics in a free open access manner for other industry stakeholders. Today is also the launch and official publication of a new book by Deep Knowledge Group General Partner Dmitry Kaminskiy titled Biomarkers of Human Longevity: Data Science for Accelerating Aging Research and R&D, the Critical Catalyst for Practical Human Longevity, Tangible Investment Decision-Making, and De-risking. And that book is available today on Amazon and at longevity-book.com. For day one of this two-day conference, we will be focusing on the present state of the market and diversity of practical applications in biomarkers of human longevity. As of Q4 2021. We will be hearing from a number of industry thought leaders and executives working at the forefront of biomarkers of human longevity, each of whom will be presenting their latest findings and achievements. Follow discussion to explore in a more dynamic manner the present state and near future of this exciting and disruptive field. To kick off today's talks, I will be delivering a brief overview of the new report produced by Aging Analytics Agency, which I mentioned just a moment ago. We will then be joined by Fedor Galkin, Director of Scientific Business Development at Deep Longevity, who will be speaking on finding the path to personal longevity with AI systems. Following Fedor, we will hear from Vijay Tawari, Executive Scientific Officer of 𝐁𝐢𝐨𝐬𝐴G AG, on the impact of genomics on healthy living. Followed by Jeremy Maleka, CEO and co-founder of Biogenomics, who will deliver a talk entitled Igniting the Integrative Marketplace of the Future, uncovering key biomarkers for longevity. Next, we will hear from Gordon Lautz, Director of the Human Glycome Project, on slowing or perhaps even reversing glycan aging to stop inflammaging. Following Gordon, we will hear from Johnny Adams, CEO and Executive Director of Aging Intervention Foundation, who will be unveiling a new protein-based aging clock to help researchers and companies accelerate the practical translation of their interventions. We will then hear from Dr. Sonja Tomuska, Partner for Strategic Development, VC, and Private Equity for PreciseXmed, on recent developments in the longevity biomarkers ecosystem in Switzerland. And finally, we will finish today's talks with a presentation by Dmitry Kaminskiy, General Partner of Deep Knowledge Group and founder of Aging Analytics Agency, who will be unveiling and officially launching his newest book, Biomarkers of Human Longevity, which again, as of this hour, on Amazon at longevity-book.com. Following this, we will be bringing all of today's speakers together for a panel discussion moderated by Sonja Tomuska. A reminder also for everybody tuning in today to join us for tomorrow, for day two, entitled Biomarkers of Human Longevity, Sector Spotlight and Diversity of Practical Applications, where we will be switching gears a bit to explore specific subsectors and use cases in a deeper manner. So as mentioned, it is my distinct pleasure to be starting off today's presentations with a brief overview of Aging Analytics Agency's newest report, Longevity Biomarkers Landscape Overview Q4 2021, which again was produced for Longevity.International. While Aging Analytics Agency has been conducting internal analytics on biomarkers of aging and longevity for a number of years, it made its first public showing on this front with the release of a 2019 open access case study, which presented an overview of the current state of the field as of 2019, which we produced as part of our parent consortium's ongoing prioritization of this domain of research and development in a number of areas, but first and foremost as the most readily available means for scientists, companies, and institutions to begin switching to a more human-centered approach. Given the rapid pace of development in the arena since then, we decided to release an expanded and updated version of that analytical report, current up to Q2 2021, which again, we produced for Longevity.International. And that report also featured an associated interactive IT platform, which allows the report's contents to be viewed and interacted with in a more precise, personalized, fine-grained manner. The full scope of that report illustrated the current state of the global industry and academic ecosystems surrounding biomarkers of human aging and longevity as of, again, Q2 2021, encompassing 150 single biomarkers and 100 biomarker panels, as well as 80 companies, 130 investors, 40 research labs, and 5 nonprofits. Now, as things have moved so rapidly in the months following the release of that second edition, we were compelled to release a third edition, which again is being officially launched today at Longevity.International, and which is current as of Q4 2021. Now, this newest special case study contains a number of key differences from our previous report, including perhaps most notably the fact that the total number of entities that it profiles has expanded significantly, featuring a total of 300 companies, 495 investors, 235 R&D centers, and 7 nonprofits, as well as an updated and expanded comparative analysis, SWOT analysis, and actionability ranking, and market readiness benchmarking of 220 single biomarkers, 100 biomarker panels, 130 genetic loci, and 200 miRNAs. The report also features an expanded classification framework for biomarkers in comparison with previous editions, an updated and expanded analysis of aging clocks, all the way from high accuracy epigenetic clocks to high actionability hematological or blood-based clocks, as well as more comprehensive coverage and analysis of practical applications, including consumer services and products, clinical applications, drug discovery, financial products, basic research, and digital avatars, which we'll be hearing more about later today. The report also expands its previous analysis of the role of longevity biomarkers in InsurTech to a completely new chapter on their role in the broader financial industry more generally, exploring a much wider range of financial industry use cases and exploring how biomarkers of longevity can be used for much more than just insurance-focused or pension-focused applications, constituting a severely untapped yet extremely market-ready tool for a wide range of applications, including investment analysis and forecasting, retail and investment banking products and services, novel financial instruments, and more. Importantly, the report also contains an expanded and deeper analysis of the role that AI has to play in longevity biomarker development and implementation, which, as many of you may know, we consider to be a key driver of innovation, accelerating the transition to market readiness for both clinical and consumer products. And indeed, with the overall number of companies using AI having increased since our last report, from just 34 to 69 companies, and constituting the large individual sector in terms of a number of companies, followed closely by digital biomarkers, which are in part fueling its growth alongside the rising volume of biomarker data in both clinical and consumer populations, rising numbers of validated individual biomarkers and biomarker panels, and the increasing power and cost effectiveness and scalability of AI more generally. These developments are quickly leading to increasingly comprehensive multimodal models of human health, performance, and longevity, which encompass an increasing diversity of biomarkers, with the ultimate aim of building personalized models of health that encompass all measurable factors and markers impacting human health, performance, and longevity. This is a development that we refer to as digital avatars, a sector and specific application that we're also seeing developing quite rapidly, in which we forecast as occupying the forefront of the future of practical human longevity, personalized therapeutic and intervention formulation and optimization, and high-frequency health and performance tracking and prediction. And whereas our previous report introduced the concept of digital avatars as the inevitable endpoint of convergences between rising volumes of measurable biomarkers and total biomarker data, as well as, again, the increasing power and cost effectiveness of AI, as well as the increasing adoption and use of digital biomarkers, that previous profiled still avatar companies in total, whereas this new edition has a much deeper analysis and profiles 35 companies working in this realm. And finally, for the sake of time, I'd like to leave you with just one more final high-level from our most analysis. Our previous report highlighted a pressing need for a greater emphasis on maximally actionable and scale-ready biomarkers of human longevity, which we could heuristically define as biomarkers which are good enough in terms of accuracy, but have a higher degree of availability, implementability, and scalability than other perhaps higher accuracy but more expensive or more biomarkers. A great example of this would be blood-based biomarkers of aging, or so-called hematological aging clocks. Now, I'm personally a bit biased, having co-authored on the topic of blood-based biomarkers of aging and longevity. But the point remains that blood-based biomarkers, which when coupled especially with AI biomarkers, have respective accuracy. The one model, which we published in scientific reports, could predict age within a margin of error of 5.7 years, for example, which is not the most accurate, but not too bad indeed. And most importantly, these types of aging clocks obtain their biomarkers through routine blood work. In other words, extremely non-invasive biomarkers available to clinicians and the majority of family physicians and doctors. This makes them extremely scalable, much more so than more expensive variables, such as epigenetic clocks, and often lesser degrees of accuracy is a fair trade-off for that scalability. We expect maximally actionable biomarkers of human longevity to be a critical catalyst in fueling continued longevity industry growth and stabilization, clinical and consumer translation of science into practice, personal practical healthy longevity, as well as longevity governance and policy. And importantly, this new report shows urgent pressing need is actually being met with an increasing number of highly actionable market-ready panels of biomarkers of human longevity. Among the 300 filed in this new report, 200 of them have market-ready consumer or clinical stage products and services. We have also, in this new report, updated benchmarking of biomarker precision versus actionability ratios, as well as introducing a number of new rankings, including genetic biomarkers, clinically approved biomarkers, diagnostic liability ranking, and omics-based ranking. Extremely important development that is probably larger than many of our viewers actually realize in practice, and frankly more than sufficient to begin being utilized in a more comprehensive manner within the longevity industry and academic ecosystem as the leading tool, again, for human-centered validation different approaches to health span extension. Now, I believe that is all that we have time for today, unfortunately, in terms of key takeaways from this new report. Any further insights and specific analyses can be reviewed by interesting viewers free of charge, again, at www.longevity.international/biomarkers. And I encourage everybody viewing today to also visit Longevity International more generally, to subscribe to future updates, new reports, new event announcements, and the like. I would like to welcome to the floor our next speaker, Fedor Galkin, Director of Scientific Business Development for Deep Longevity, to share his insights on finding the path to personal longevity with AI systems. Fedor, it's great to have you back with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Franco. And yes, today I would like to give more of a slightly more technical talk than I usually do. Because I will be talking about how in deep longevity we look for the ways to improve a human lifespan, right? And the very core of this approach is how we generate recommendations. So my name is Fedor Galkin. I'm the Director of Scientific Business Development in Deep Longevity. Just a quick disclaimer before I proceed is that Deep Longevity is part of a publicly traded company called 𝐶𝐬𝐴𝐬𝐚𝐫𝐤𝐞𝐫𝐬. And initially we were incubated in silico medicine, but now we are our own startup company under the wing of Insurance Longevity, doing biomarker research, producing aging clocks, and finding the applications for this technology for clinics, for insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and other sectors. So the very idea of measuring age and the processes of aging is somewhat tough and hard because, first of all, there is no general consensus on what exactly constitutes aging. For example, we can ask the question of when does aging start, right? There are several answers to this question. We can consider it from the mortality curve, that perhaps it is at 30 years when the mortality curve goes exponential finally, right? It has somewhat of a flat line in the 20s. Or we can say that, this curve is dropping until early teens, but then it starts rising. So perhaps people start aging when they are when they're still children. But we can provide even more points of view. So we can say that as soon as you are born, because some mechanistic theories of aging say that, well, mitochondria and reactive oxygen species, they are the root cause of all aging processes, well, most of them. So, and as soon as people start breathing, they start generating these reactive oxygen species, and the mitochondria start, well, slowly killing us. So there is this point of view. And yet another is that, well, aging actually starts before inception because, for example, the rate of mutations that are introduced into your genome, it greatly depends on the age of your father. And also, if I have already told about mitochondria, so we get all our mitochondria from our mothers. So the mutations that our mothers acquire throughout the years, they might actually also go into the following generation. So we can argue that aging starts even before inception. Yeah. So with all these slightly confusing plethora of ideas of what aging is, it's really hard to navigate all this space, especially if you're a consumer and you have asked somebody just a simple question, well, hey, how do I live longer? What do I do? And you start unpacking what aging is, etc., etc. It's very confusing for a consumer. And the people just, I think, want to know how to live longer, healthier, and happier lives. So, oh yes, another way of showing what that aging is totally different depending on the point of view. This is a work by Vadim Gladyshev, and what he actually did, he tested in mice different anti-aging geroprotective therapies and found out that all of them, well, here are the columns, and each column is a geroprotective intervention, treatment, or a genetic line of mice that are supposed to live longer than normal mice. So what he found that the gene expression in all these different mice who are supposed to live longer than usual mice, they are totally different. So these genetic signatures of aging, they depend on the model you are using at the moment for your experiments. So even if we read in the articles that, well, this new silver bullet pill, it treats aging, well, it might be true for example, these cluster of aging processes, but these who are totally different by gene expression, these magic bullets pill will not work, right? So aging remains somewhat undefined in the field. And we decided that, well, since there are so many opinions on what aging is, why don't we try to combine them into, well, you know, this kind of arsenal of different approaches to studying aging, and build a small treasure chest where we keep all the different theories of what actually is aging, and each theory gives us answers on how to treat aging and how to fight it, how to slow it down. We have built a number of aging clocks to tell how fast people are aging, and each one of them can tell us very important tips about this particular person. Right, we have a psychological aging clock. We can extract tips on how people should think to stop their aging. Right, we have ECG aging clock. So this project can tell us more about what people who are mostly concerned about the aging of their heart system, of their cardiovascular system, what they should do, and all these other different types of aging clocks to fit every possible answer to what aging is, when it starts, and what actually you want to achieve when you say, I want to stop aging. All our aging clocks are realized as deep models. Well, in the context of other, well, they're called here shallow models, but I guess the proper term is linear models. All our aging clocks, they use lots of data obtained from public and not so public sources. Sources of when we partner with somebody and we might get some rare data set in collaboration with somebody. And we use these data to estimate someone's biological age, which represents the intensity of the aging processes they're going through, not just a simple number in your birth certificate that says, well, you're 60 years old, but you might be actually doing really well, aging very, very slowly, and your biological age might be 40 years, right? In this case, we say your aging rate is decelerated, so you are doing good. And conversely, if somebody is 20 years old, but their biological age is 40, well, they definitely could could use some help from us, from our aging clocks and our recommendation systems. So I have already introduced the concept of multifaceted aging, and that we have an aging clock for every facet of aging. And I like to imagine it as some kind of a pyramid, and it is much easier to affect the higher levels of this structure, much more difficult to achieve something at the bottom. And but at the same time, the features that are on the top, like psychological age, how your habits, how you produce your habits, whether you're a physically active person, well, you can probably easily imagine how to change that. You can tell a person that, well, you should stop drinking so much alcohol, or you should drink more green tea, and this will help you immensely. So this is something that people can easily do, but at the same time, the variability of aging rate we can detect using these two layers is so high that we need to observe a person for a long time before we can we can be sure that their aging rate is accurately measured and that our recommendations are helping them. So you need to have a long-term observation of a person to see that your recommendations are helping them and that they are actually on the right path to longevity. The bottom two layers are blood age, so that is blood biochemistry, complete blood count and metabolic profile of your blood. If this aging clock, our blood age clock, it produces much more accurate estimations, and they are much more medically, clinically relevant than, for example, psychological aging estimations. And if, but at the same time, it's hard to influence this. You need to probably use some medications, see a doctor, see a physician, and ask for their advice and follow, for example, a regimen of supplementaries, vitamins, etc., etc. And eventually, you will change the aging pace associated with your blood system. And well, we know that blood permeates all organs, and that is why it is so useful as a source of biomarkers of anything. Yes, you have bad liver, you can see it in blood. You have bad heart, you can see it in blood as well. So aging, if you have fast aging, you can see it in blood as well. That is what we do. And the very bottom is this category of molecular aging clocks, right? We have here transcriptome, microbiome, epigenetic clock. So these aging clocks, they might be very hard to shift backward. You need to keep your new lifestyle, your new pro-longevity lifestyle for months before these changes, they trickle down through all these levels and settle down in your epigenome, right? So, but once they are there, it's the good point. It will be really hard to get them out. Yes, to lose these milestones of slow aging. So I will start unpacking these rather quickly. So the first thing is that psychological aging, what we do is currently we are researching the theme of when a person can be said that he is maturing or is he aging. For example, in our study from last year about psychological aging, we see that, for example, openness and extroversion, lots of really good stuff are associated with higher psychological age. So people who are psychologically older, they display, well, for example, higher conscientiousness, and conscientiousness is good. So no arguing here. And at the same time, people who display low psychological age, they're high in neuroticism. So is this aging or is this maturity? This is actually some kind of an open topic. And right now, if you look at, if you type in Google, is happiness U-shaped, and the U-shape of well-being, you will see lots of articles dedicated to this topic, whether people are generally declining in their well-being and happiness, and whether everybody wants to always be younger, or there is this kind of U-shape. And what we believe that in many cases, people do not want to be unconditionally younger. There is some kind of desired age that they should move forward to. And we are currently developing this idea, and hopefully in the following months, this will be released in publications, in applications of iPhone and other services that will help people to reach their desired age. Blood aging, I have quickly, briefly mentioned it, that we get 2 blood panels. You can estimate age really accurately. Right here is actual age and the predicted age on the y-axis. The best, well, I say that they are perfect fit for clinical trials. Why is that? Because in many clinical trials, you get information about how different compounds affect your blood levels. And in some cases, you can take information collected across different clinical trials. And this is something that we did in-house and tested, for example, how niacin, how it affects aging, right? So you can measure your your subjects in a clinical trial before and after they were subjected to a novel treatment or a hypothetical geroprotective intervention, and see how their blood levels change in the context of aging. And why it is perfect for clinical trials, because in most clinical trials, all these blood biomarkers, they are just part of a standard package. You usually take these blood biomarkers from people, measure them. So testing whether some kind of intervention increases or slows down the pace of aging is no big deal. And finally, we're at the very bottom of our pyramid, is as represented by epigenetic aging. We have a model called 𝐁𝐢𝐨𝐬𝐚𝐫𝐤, and what we can do with it is we can estimate which genes are for example, too methylated, and if they were slightly lower methylated, right, they had a lower concentration of methyl residues on their promoters. Each one of them, on average, that would decrease your biological age by 1 year. Yes, and you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 genes, you reduce their methylation level, and a person might get younger by 5 years. That is something that we are actually also developing. I might actually briefly say how we achieve that. Well, first of all, we have annotated all the genes used by our aging clock, and we have also collected lots of literature references, how to see how the things from, I don't know, from your dietary habits to the levels of stress you experience on your work, how they affect your methylation levels. And through these interventions, we can estimate how people will get younger or older. And just a brief technical remark is that to do that, I think we solved a rather hard technical issue with feature importance, right? So the very foundation of any, I think, recommendation system that we use in with our deep aging clocks is feature importance analysis. So we need to find which features increase your age in a specific person. And to do that, well, one way is to use LIME. It is a rather popular method in the deep learning community. So what LIME is basically doing is it is sampling many pseudo samples around the original sample, and you predict the age for all these people. For example, in this case, we did 2 runs of LIME on the same sample, 5,000 pseudo samples, yes, mock epigenetic profiles for one person. And we can see that in most cases, the effect that these 2 feature importance analysis runs produce, they correlate really well. So if in one iteration we see that a methylation level increases your pace of aging, that in the second run we will see the same. Yeah, so the randomization does not really affect the stability of this method too much. Same goes here, and very few outliers, right? So for example, here run 1, the first run said that these DNA methylation mark, it actually makes a person look older, but the second run said that this mark makes a person look younger. So among the 5,000 samples, it is really 10,000 in total, right? It is a really rare occasion. So yes, I think I'm done with my presentation. I hope I'm not too too out of schedule. So if you would like to, yeah, oh, thank you. Great. So I will have some time for the finishing word, right? So yes, if you have any questions and you would like to discuss academic collaboration or commercial collaboration, or just to talk about the technical implementations, I'm always open for a dialogue or a video conference call. You can directly send me an email, fedor@deeplongevity.com. You can scan my WeChat. I'm always on WeChat. It's the app I use the most. And if you are interested in how aging clocks could help you in your clinic, in your company, scan this code and it will redirect you to a Google form that will help us learn more about each other. All right, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Fedor. And any interested viewers who do have specific questions for him, feel free to pop those into the Q&A box below. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Fedor. Insightful as always. And I personally very much liked the technical nature of your talk today. So thank you. I'd like to welcome Professor Vijay Tawari to the floor. Vijay is the Executive Scientific Advisor at 𝐁𝐢𝐨𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐤𝐞𝐫𝐬. He has an internationally visible record in genomics, epigenetics, and computational biology, with many high-impact papers in Nature, Nature Genetics, Cancer Cell, Cell Stem Cell, Nature Communications, you name it, basically. And he's here to speak on the topic of how genomics can be used to drive healthy living. Vijay, thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Franco, for this introduction. And I'm glad to be in this meeting. I'm already learning a lot. So as Franco said, I'm an academic lead at the Queen's University in UK. At the same time, I'm a former director of biomarker discovery at Skylight in Switzerland and currently serve as an executive advisor. So I will present some flavors of both of these, but basically related to genomics and healthy living. So I drew this slide a few minutes before the meeting to draw your attention that what we call healthy is very tricky. Because it has multi-parameters. It can have some clinical definitions. For example, you have gone through a checkup and everything looks fine. Externally, you feel good. You don't show any symptoms of mental disorders. You may have no genetic predisposition. And of course, your lifestyle, how good you exercise, how well you sleep, do you have good work-life balance. So to define a good and a healthy lifestyle is a multifactorial process, and it's very difficult to come to a solid conclusion. And when we say we know healthy, only then we start to call what is a deviation from healthy. So there is serious need of developing a baseline pattern for a healthy person. But what is becoming clear that a sensitive and early detection of this deviation from healthy is key to a healthy living and longevity. And I will give you a few examples, including history of genomics, how it has started to influence our lives, and of course, aging. We know we have 3 million base pairs, around 22,000 coding genes. Among us, we have quite some similarities, and we are 99.6% similar, and we are 99% identical to chimpanzee genome. Yet we look very different, as you might notice. It all began in 90s when the Human Genome Project was launched. The project went very well, and we ended up having the first version of Human Genome completed. And you'll be surprised that some parts were still missing. It actually was completed last month. But this led to a lot of new discoveries and new changes. For example, the moment we had a genetic code sequenced, we started looking for which variations within our gene associate with distinct disorders. So first, genome-wide association studies were published. Then came the ENCODE project that aimed to measure the functional regulatory regions in the genome, including DNA methylation, histone modifications, non-coding RNA, and subsequently mapping genome of cancers. And this obviously led to a lot of other subsequent studies, including development of knockout mutations, first full sequencing of the Neanderthal genome, and so on and so forth. So basically, from sequencing to genome-wide studies, to basically understanding how genes affect our lifestyles. And this is a chart I draw with Nature published in 2011, how they saw genomics will influence us. So the 19th to 2003 was the Human Genome Project. Then we saw more development in understanding the biology of the genomes. From 11 to 20, we have seen a lot of studies on understanding the biology of disease. And now projection is that from 20s to 30s, we would expect to see its clinical impact. And this is the time when we start to harvest all this data derived from genomics and try to make an impact on human lives. So this is where we are at the moment, and this is the right time to make use of it. This is also hampered, had been facilitated by a number of sequencing instruments that have hit the scene in the last decade. And the advantage has been that the sequencing costs have gone down significantly. There's a decrease of time as well per genome sequencing. And we are discovering more and more genetic variants that associate with different disease risks. And in the end, from that same genomics information, we are able to discover copy number variation, discover mutations, understand DNA protein interactions, transcription profiles, metagenomics, metabolomics, RNA, splicing, you name it. So this has really revolutionized the way we understand about how the normal physiology of our body and how these things go wrong in diseases. So I'll give you a few examples how this has started to facilitate early diagnostics and thereby healthy living. So one of the first noticeable project was EXACT project, where there was comprehensive genome sequencing to search for individual genetic variants. There they focused on exomes. That was 1.5% of total genome. It's cost effective when you want to sequence many people. And the first large scale whole genome sequencing project was called 𝐶𝐬𝐚 Genome Project. That was most robust, accurate test compared to exome sequencing. It replaced exome sequencing because the cost decreased, and obviously it could detect much more things beyond exome. So what we have understood that we have a lot of single nucleotide variants that stand among us. Many of these are also multi-nucleotide variants that include indels, copy number variations, inversions, translocations, and aneuploidy. And this led to development of a number of consortium that have been running last 10 to 15 years to establish genetic variants of specific disorders. I give you a few examples. One is Alzheimer's disease consortium, was type 2 diabetes, then psychiatric consortium. And they have already started to show which gene variations might predispose us for these disorders. Another noticeable example is genetic risk factors for type 2 diabetes. A number of nations around the globe have launched a lot of genome sequencing projects a few years ago. And once compiled, this is an unprecedented level of information that would be of use. And obviously, this then went to commercialization. A number of companies, they started offering personal genetic testing. Among these, the most noticeable one was 23andMe, that all of us probably would have heard about. So far, they have sold more than 10 million kits. 80% of their customers consent to research. They have collected 2 billion plus data of phenotypic points. And they take advantage of DNA sequencing. They sell as kits. They collect phenotypic data through self-report surveys about wellness and behavior, serious conditions, rare disease, for example. And then they try to relate this to the genetic composition. One of the first case of genomics-based preventive medicine was highlighted by Angelina Jolie that led to a lot of awareness among individuals. She did her genome sequencing, and she found she harbors mutation in BRCA1 that increases the risk of breast cancer by 87% and ovarian cancer by 50%. She decided to undergo double mastectomy. And basically, that way she reduced her risk of actually developing this problem. What we start to see basically is human body is a source of big data. At the moment, we collect a lot of MRIs, we collect mammograms, we are starting to collect CT scans, we have X-rays. And so at this moment, on an average, every hospital has 665 terabytes of data. And on top of this, now next generation sequencing data sets will also become a common practice among clinicians. So that will add terabytes of data. So data management and integration is becoming critical. This is another example of how big genome sequencing projects have facilitated targeted therapy and giving longer lifespan to patients. For example, this TCG consortia that aim to sequence almost all tumor types, as you can, 33 different tumor types, 10 rare cancer, 11,000 patients in the beginning. And using this profiling, they could find that certain types of mutations predispose us or make us chemoresistant to certain kinds of therapies. For example, in this case, alterations in the gene EGFR, they found they respond to treatment tyrosine kinase inhibitors for lung cancer. So if you do not have this alteration, this inhibitor is useless. You waste your time in your life. And there were several such similar examples in this case. So knowing your genetic variation allows one to tailor the treatment in the clinic and thereby helping you support live a better life. Similar was the case on ALL, where it was found that the patients with this genetic profile were originally incurable, while these were treatment responsive. Based on this genomics mutation and gene expression profiling, they could identify new drugs that could actually treat these originally incurable patients. So that also allows to find newer drug targets. In terms of therapy development, this has led to a lot of progress in new drug development as well as identifying new targets. And this has also given rise to a new field called pharmacogenomics. And this is because we have gradually learned that 99% of people have genetic variants that influence how we process in response to medication. The same drug might not work equally effectively in both of us. So thereby, that genetic predisposition to differential response must be understood. So medications, for example, may be processed too fast and removed from the body before taking effect, or processed too slowly, thereby building up in the body, causing side effects. And this is determined by metabolism, which in turn is influenced by gene expression programs or genetic composition. Individuals may be prone to side effects or unintended drug reactions. So this is why this field has a lot of promise for future, where based on genomics profile, we could actually know and learn which drugs I may respond better to and which one should not. And this is already developing very rapidly. So this is a number of publications, a number of databases are being developed that aim to actually predict individual response to drugs. They also want to rationalize drug development and design. They also want to repurpose drugs, some drugs that existed, but we did not know where they could be more effective. And they also want to use this information to better select individuals for clinical trials and also find uses for drugs that failed earlier trials because we did not have the genetic information. So there's a lot of data-driven prediction of drug effect. For example, this is one program called Proctor. It's a tool that directly predicts the likelihood of toxicity of clinical trials because it integrates chemical properties and tissue-specific target gene expressions using random forest model to predict whether the drug is likely to fail clinical trials for toxicity reasons. Obviously, this has also led to learnings about the epigenetic control of gene expression. We know that things that change within the cell are, in terms of gene expression, are controlled by a variety of histone modifications, DNA methylation, chromatin cross of transcription factors, which in turn are influenced by extracellular environment. So nothing happens in isolation. The environment here induces cell signaling pathways that in turn influence chromatin, that in turn influences gene expression, and then obviously affects the cell phenotype. So there's a lot of effort in targeting chromatin because tumor cells not only are activated by genetic and epigenetic alterations, but also they misguide these processes to escape chemotherapy and host immune surveillance. So these have become new targets for therapy and intervention. The Epigenomics project that was launched a few years ago aimed at mapping epigenomic state of every human tissue type, and it has been completed with great success. So my lab at Queen's, we try to integrate epigenetics, genomics, systems biology, computational biology to understand predisposition to neurological disorders, find tailored therapeutic approaches as well as in cancers. In the end, to enable early detection and promote a healthy living and enhance longevity. One of the major problems in the field has been a late detection of many diseases. For example, 4 out of 10 will develop some kind of cancer on this planet. We have 15 million new patients each year. And out of this, half of them are diagnosed late. And that comes because of the current diagnostic methods. What we do, we take bulk tissue and we look for markers or changes in cell types. We cannot detect these orange or bad cells in the beginning because if it's 1 or 2 cells wrong here, the bulk methods would not be able to detect because we have a pooled population. So 𝐁𝐤𝐚𝐫𝐤𝐞𝐫𝐬 company in Switzerland aims to do this analysis at a single cell resolution to be able to detect these abnormal cells at the very early stages of a problem. When we say single cell data, they exist in many forms. So at the moment, we have possibility of doing cytometry analysis. We do a lot of single cell RNA sequencing, so profile transcriptome at the single cell level. You could do T cell, B cell receptor sequencing. And now multi-omics profiling is becoming very common. For example, we do a lot of combined ATAC-seq and transcriptome profiling. So from the same cell, you can get gene expression and chromatin accessibility. From the same cell, you can get gene expression and DNA methylomics profile. So this has revolutionized to basically diagnose early and as well as understand mechanisms of the onset of these diseases. So 𝐁𝐤𝐴𝐚 has developed an artificial intelligence-based algorithm we call SkyVision that has ability to analyze these single cell data sets to a very sensitive and accurate levels, thereby allowing to identify biomarkers that characterize a sick population. And this has facilitated early diagnostics and patient stratification, for example, for therapy. This has been very successful. As you could see here, so far we have had 6 projects and biomarkers have been identified in 3 of these projects. We have patented many of these and currently going to develop an IVD prototype to bring it to the market. So these single cell based diagnostics tools have shown power to provide biomarkers to detect disease early and hereby preventing or treating the disease better. All in all, the need of the hour actually is to manage these big genomics data sets in a more professional way and allow its much wider uses. And in this sense, given the scale of the data, deep learning or AI is becoming very relevant at this moment. So overall, so far, we have been looking in a very narrow dimensions with very limited physiological parameters to understand or promote healthy living and or delay problems in our life. And this is basically the risks, diagnostics, and treatment. If we know our risks, if we can diagnose early, and if we can treat in the right way, we can live a longer, healthy life. But there has been a lot of darkness around it, given the previous gaps in the knowledge. But with the onset of genome sequences, with the transcriptome maps, with the epigenome maps, with the pharmacogenomics and genome-wide association studies, this is becoming very easy. And this is the right time to make use of this, to have this multimodal integrated pathway to understand how to live a better, longer, healthy lives. So genomics will have huge impact on diagnostics and characterization and treatment of diseases. It will promote preventive medicine, and is doing already, hence promoting healthy living and longevity. It will allow us to stratify patients using whole genome sequencing, gene expression, or epigenomic profiling, thereby paving the way for personalized medicine. Not only that, it will predict the toxicity of new promising therapeutic targets. And there is need of development of new experimental and computation analysis to generate and integrate multi-layer of genomics data. And obviously, artificial intelligence has a lot of promises for it. And as I mentioned, good management of these big genomics data sets is key for the most effective use of all these data around to enable a healthier and longer life to individuals on this planet. With that, I thank you for the opportunity, Franco. I hope I'm in time.
You are. Thank you so much, Professor Tawari. Very insightful. For any of our viewers who have specific questions on Skylight and Professor Tawari's work, please remember to submit them to the Q&A box for the panel discussion. Make sure to stick around for that panel discussion because we'll be bringing all of today's speakers together to delve into these various topics in a more dynamic and deeper manner. And also, for those viewers who might be interested in hearing more about intersections between genetics and genomics, make sure to stick around for day 2 tomorrow of our 2-day conference, which will focus on sector spotlight and diversity of practical applications. We do have a few talks that touch upon that as well tomorrow. Next, we'll be joined by Jeremy Maleka, CEO and co-founder of Biocannic. Jeremy has 20 years experience at the intersection of medicine, IT, and software. In recent years, he has been developing and implementing data-driven and cloud-based methods for collection and processing of objective data. Today, he's going to be sharing some thoughts on uncovering key biomarkers for longevity. And just FYI, I do know that Jeremy's work and is included and featured in a new book by Deep Knowledge Group General Partner Dmitry Kaminskiy, which is actually being launched today. So make sure to stick around for the end of today's proceedings as well. Jeremy, thanks so much for being with us again. It's a pleasure to have you. It's yours.
So yeah, thank you for the great introduction. So I am Jeremy. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Biocannic. I'm going to talk a little bit more aspirational about this idea of building a new integrative medicine marketplace of the future. Integrative medicine also goes by personalized medicine or functional medicine as well. So, but first I wanted to start off with a question. What does 40 pounds mean to you? 18 kilograms, I think it's about 3 stones. On average, 40 pounds is about the weight of a human leg, a car tire, or 4 cans of paint. But really, why that's important is, I started out in the medical reimbursed space. I've worked in healthcare my whole career up until Biocannic, living in the insurance-based industry. I actually ran the global market, so very familiar with the European and Asian markets as well. But during that time, I was seeing my health decline over time. So this was me in 2016. It's always a little odd to put this picture up, but I had reached a peak weight of 240 pounds. For those of you that are obviously well aware, the Framingham study basically said that obesity has the tendency to lead to take on average about 3 years off your life. So I was a health-driven individual. I've been in healthcare. I was doing all the right things. I was working out all the time, eating less, moving more, gluten-free, organic, yet all of my biomarkers were going in the wrong direction. And that was a real challenge. And going into the standard of care, I was left with no real answers. My, fasting blood glucose was subclinical for a diabetic. I was presenting as if I was low T, but the reality was that was not my issue. And thankfully, I was exposed to this idea of integrative medicine or functional medicine or personalized medicine. And what we really uncovered through broad-based metabolic testing was a confluence of different things that were happening with me as an individual. So for me, even though I was gluten-free, I was still consuming a lot of carbohydrates. That was leading to estrogen dominance. My genetics were contributing to a poor detoxification pathway, which was really the source of what was going on. But the problem for me was, if you think about, well, if it's just carbohydrates and that's leading to estrogen dominance, go on a keto diet, the reality was I'm highly reactive to beef. And so without that additional testing, I actually saw no response. But ultimately, when we got to the root of my issue, I had a transformative health experience. I dropped 40 pounds, and at 42, I'm now 44, I'm actually healthier than I was at 22. And that's really because I was able to understand what was going on with me individually at a metabolic level through this through this broad-based metabolic testing. And so that's the real inspiration for what we're trying to do in terms of catalyzing this new marketplace. And so our vision is to imagine a world where everyone has the knowledge to truly control their own health and what drives it. And really driving this idea of health intelligence. So taking all of the information, the great clinical research that you're going to see on the rest of this conference, and bring it together for authentic, individualized whole person outcomes that are really going to extend longevity and health span. And our vision is to see practitioners build thriving businesses delivering on these solutions based upon root cause and not symptomatic suppression. This is consumer-driven healthcare. And the reason why that's different than reimbursed-based healthcare is that these practitioners not only have to deliver their clinical solutions, help individuals understand their metabolic data, drive the outcomes, but also attract individuals in the consumer marketplace. And we believe that through this, healthcare can be transformed through this power of optimal vitality, consumer-driven advocacy, and a robust practitioner-rich marketplace. And so the opportunity that we're focused on is really building this idea of a new integrative marketplace rooted in the power of health intelligence and consumer advocacy so society can take back control of their health and wellness in a post-pandemic world. You know, COVID has obviously disrupted everybody across the globe, but one thing that it's really shined a light on is the importance of metabolic health and how important that is to driving to having the negative outcomes. But the question globally, not even just in the US market, is, are we ready for the market? Are consumers actually ready to pay out of pocket and demand better outcomes outside of the standard of care? And every indication pre-pandemic was it was already there. So integrative medicine in the US alone is an $89 billion market. People are seeking this out in growing numbers. And this is really accelerating even in a post-pandemic world. I think we're here to stay, that people really want solutions to drive optimal health and vitality. As most people on the call are probably aware, Vinod is one of the most prolific VC investors. And he had this great quote that we really need to focus on eliminating symptom-based medicine as a key goal for 2030. And this idea that you shouldn't have to start losing your memory before you're diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so for me, in my case, it was I shouldn't have to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes before I'm given the right tools and actions to drive a better health outcome and better longevity for me. And if you're not aware, the healthcare investment industry is already there. The two of the top three investment areas saw $7 billion in investment in 2020. This is only going to accelerate. But the problems with some of the previous presenters already identified is that the market has a number of challenges. On the health intelligence side, we have a number of multiple data sources across a bunch of fragmented systems. There's a complex interfaces, constant evolution of new technology, new research, and new things to be able to look at. On the consumer side, there's a lack of education about the opportunity for personalized medicine. There's a perceived approach that this is going to be very costly to really understand myself in an individual level. Therefore, I'm going to stay reliant upon the current care system. And also, I'm afraid of investing, $1,000 in testing or $2,000 in an out-of-pocket engagement because I don't know if it's really going to drive the outcomes that I'm looking for. And really, on the practitioner side, again, these practitioners are focused on consumer out-of-pocket, so they both have to have the clinical expertise, but also the business and marketing expertise. Their businesses are fraught with inefficiency and struggling with communication and really split across chaotic delivery systems. And so our focus here is really to catalyze this idea of a new marketplace. And the reason where this comes from is there is one rule that you'll see probably over and over again about health and longevity. And that dependable rule is that it depends. It depends on your genetics, it depends on your diet, depends on your lifestyle. And really the only rule for each individual is that they have to have the health intelligence to uncover the real insights to drive optimal health and longevity. You could take the exact same person and put them in two different environments and have two completely different outcomes. One person living healthy outside, getting plenty of vitamin D, well, that same twin lives in a toxic home filled with black mold. That's really why it's so important to have this idea of health intelligence for each individual. So, why has this not happened before? Well, we've always been trapped in this idea of double-blind placebo-controlled trials. This is great for a new pharmaceutical or a new thing that doesn't exist in an individual today. So you can test whether the effect is meaningful or significant. The problem with personalized health and wellness is it's really hard to tease out the complex web of interactions. And because of this, integrative medicine and personalized medicine has really struggled to demonstrate positive outcomes because of the nuances in the data. When you think about dietary interventions, food sensitivities, microbiome, hormone, blood chemistry, the nuances in the data set make it impossible to sufficiently power a trial to have it be able to be demonstrated in this way. But what we're seeing is this massive explosion in consumer-driven health and services. But this data is siloed in wearables, apps, patient portals. If you're in the US market, you're probably familiar with this idea of direct at-home testing, where people are now taking, you can walk into a department store and you can buy an at-home hormone test. The problem is that data, what do you do with it, right? If my hormones are messed up, where do I go with that? I can't go back to my standard of care physician. I really need to find that insight as to what actions I need to take. And the chaos in the delivery systems really affects a practitioner's ability to find and gather those insights at an individual. But cloud-based systems can really unlock the data. And so starting, with, this first aspect of health intelligence. So what is health intelligence? It's the idea of taking everything from intake assessments all the way through outcomes. It unifies this disparate data, drives engagement, and revolutionizes the patient experience. One of the biggest problems with personalized medicine is these are often multifaceted programs, which can be overwhelming for an individual. And when they're overwhelmed, they don't try it. And this again causes reasons why integrative medicine has had a hard time demonstrating outcomes. So where are we going? One, we're building a new data model, unifying the industry across a common platform. We obviously want to leverage technologies to uncover the markers and interventions that are going to drive the appropriate outcomes at the individual level. And we can do this through AI and machine learning, but we have to accumulate a sufficient amount of data in order to truly unlock health intelligence. So where are we as a company? Today, we are a technology platform focused on practitioners and improving not only their onboarding time, their efficiency, their ability to see the data, but we're also aggregating this information to help unlock insights to further speed and scale their practice. And through our automation, we're able to drive maximum outcomes because we help them scale each individual's tailored program to drive the right outcome. And we do that through establishing a foundational ecosystem of partners. So we do that, we integrate the wearable data or a Fitbit, just to name a few, but we're agnostic to lab testing companies. So we allow practitioners to use any lab that they want to use as a part of their personalized program design. So we partner with companies like microbiome companies, advanced hormone testing, mycotoxin, environmental toxicity, food sensitivity, and we're able to bring that all together. We also partner with supplement dispensaries and manufacturers to help them really optimize what the dosage information is. We collect self-reported data, we integrate with CRMs and practice management, and we also partner with our dietary tracking company so that we can bring the insight into the platform for an individual practitioner. And so this is really what our dashboard looks like today, and this is how we kind of view the ecosystem. So what we do is we're a technology layer across all of these great products and services, and we help surface the insights for the practitioner and the individual to see what's going on. Ultimately, this is where we have the opportunity to layer in AI and ML to surface insights. So doing things like phenotypic recommendations, things such as, hey, did you know individuals like Jeremy had a response to, a greater than 70% positive response to a low FODMAP diet intervention based upon their microbiome and hormone health markers. And so our vision for practitioner viability really comes down to really driving a positive health journey, saving vital time and money, and helping them to scale and see more individual patients, which helps get this into the mainstream. So our future vision for practitioners is this idea that health intelligence, it helps them no longer be drowning in data and inefficient use of time. They can now focus on the most important markers for an individual to really tailor those recommendations. They're able to learn faster and be efficient and see more patients seeing more positive outcomes. Not only do they personally fulfill, but they do better financially. And it really helps them effectively drive market growth because it drives more and more interest in bringing stronger and stronger clinicians into the industry. From a consumer advocacy perspective, this is really where the transformation has to occur at the consumer level. And it's really about learning a whole new way of living and finding their powerful voice to take back control in this idea of a post-pandemic world. And one of the things, one of the resistance points that we kind of come to when we have a lot of these conversations is this idea that, it's additional spend. Consumers today are wasting money. They're actually spending about $4 trillion annually on perceived health solutions. It's really about taking this trial and error approach and focusing the spend on what's going to drive the outcomes for the individual. And we also are stuck in this idea of a one-size-fits-all approach. Just because my friend did well on a keto diet doesn't mean I'm going to do well on a keto. Maybe I need to be vegan. Maybe I have a massive amount of food sensitivity. So it's actually going to drive my inflammation markers in the wrong direction. We're also addicted to things like gyms, supplements, for wearables, fad diets, and cleanses, but 99% of these trends fail to deliver on any lasting outcomes. And so really what we're talking about is giving individuals a starting point. So the true starting point about what I need to do tomorrow to improve my health is going to be an individually tailored program. So it doesn't really need to cost thousands of dollars. When people think about all the money that they're spending on that gym membership, the extra wearables, the supplements in a cupboard, gathering dust, you can actually spend less money to be more effective without this cycle of trial and error. And the holistic assessment can really show the path to each individual's own 40-pound goal. Obviously, that was important for me, but thinking about somebody, in their 70s who wants to spend more time to be able to run around with their grandkids, what does that look like? How do I get through the pain, the constant back pain without having to suppress everything through, painkiller medications? And so as health intelligence emerges, the cost of health is going to come down and longevity is going to increase. And so what we're doing is we're really trying to build an ecosystem of partners. And so our focus is really this idea of becoming a catalyst to all of the companies, all of the like-minded individuals and practitioners, and help bring this industry into the standard of care. I had the pleasure of working at ResMed, which is the leading obstructive sleep apnea company. And this was a quote that Dr. Farrell, the founder of ResMed, used to say early on in obstructive sleep apnea. He would be on investor calls and he would say, they would ask him his questions about his competitor, his new features and benefits. And his comment always was, our primary competitor is ignorance. And to all the technology people on this call and the practitioners and the like-minded individuals, really our competitor is ignorance. The ability to really bring all of this insight, this understanding into the mainstream is a massive opportunity for everyone. It's a win-win-win across the board. Not only are we able to transform the healthcare industry from a financial perspective, but we're driving better health and longevity for each individual. We're going to take cost out of the system and we're going to drive better outcomes for each individual. So today we have a page set up for anybody that would like to follow us, join us at biocanic.com/catalyst, just sign up. I promise we won't spam you. But what we're really trying to do is bring together the industry for a common goal. And really start to work together to leverage all of this data to really uncover the insights that are going to drive longevity and overall health improvements in the long term. So again, I'll pop that in the chat after this, but it's biocanic.com/catalyst. We're really looking for partners, other companies that really want to kind of really accelerate this and are really looking forward to the future. And so with that, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Insightful, refreshing, and catalytic as always. Great to have you back here. And for anybody who has additional questions about Jeremy's work and biomechanics, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A. We'll try to cover as many of them as possible in the all speaker panel discussion later today. I'd now like to welcome to the floor Gordon Lautz, Director at the Human Glycome Project, as well as Director of the National Center of Scientific Excellence in Personalized Healthcare. Gordon will be sharing with us insights on how slowing glycan aging might be a critical key for modulating inflammaging. Gordon, pleasure to have you back. The floor is yours.
Good. So can we slow down or can we even revert glycan aging and in this way stop inflammaging? So we all know that inflammation is one of the main drivers of aging and age-related diseases. And slightly over a year ago, this was a headline story of the New Scientist where they said you're only as young as your immune system. So we have to think about our immune system. And if we think about our immune system, then glycans are extremely important. Glycans or circulating immunoglobulins are functional effectors. So they're parts of the molecule which are balancing inflammation and also inflammaging. And depending whether we are young or old, we would have either glycans which suppress inflammation, or when we get older, we have glycans which promote inflammation by multiple interactions. There is a very good review here if you're interested in details. I will focus more on glycans because they're the ultimate layer of molecular complexity. So practically nearly every protein which evolved after the appearance of multicellular life is glycosylated. It has these furry modifications on its surface. They're called glycans. They have nothing to do with the glycation, HbA1c, AGE. So this is something completely different. Please do not mix glycation and a glycated hemoglobin with glycans. So glycans are modifications which modify protein function. They take part of the structure. They act with to interact with the receptors. This is S-glycoprotein of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. But unfortunately, glycans are the most neglected molecules. People ignore them because they're difficult to study. And even the director of NIH was writing about the S-glycoprotein, so this molecule here, without a single glycan on its surface. They do it because it is difficult. It's not easy to look at glycans, but we started the journey over 10 years ago. We analyzed over 150,000 different individuals, but not any individuals from some of the best phenotype, genotype cohorts in the world in collaboration with some of the leading researchers. And now we can combine this glycan data, which we generate, with everything else they have collected in these biobanks and learn a lot about functions of glycans. And the first thing we learned is that glycans are fantastic biomarkers of biological age, not chronological, because you don't need a biomarker to know how chronologically old you are. But for biological age, they're very important. We got over 15 million euro of research grants, studied over 100,000 people, and established this glycan age biomarker, which is now commercialized through a London-based startup called Glycan Age. So the key benefit of Glycan Age is that it is actionable. So the main disadvantage of the majority of different aging clocks is that you do things which you know they're healthy, and your clock does not change. This is particularly the case for the original Steve's epigenetic age clock, because this is just measuring more or less your chronological age. But most of other epigenetic clocks, and now there are dozens of them on the market, also do not respond well to different interventions. So you change something and then your clock does not change. We try to make Glycan Age really hard science. We published over 100 papers, some of them in the leading journals, including a number of Nature journals, Gastroenterology, which is the leading gastroenterology journal, Circulation Research, and so on. And through all these studies, 100,000 people, over 100 publications, we learned that glycans change a lot in the diseases. And in the majority of diseases, although these are very different diseases like cancer, diabetes, inflammatory diseases, people who are ill will change in the direction of aging. So these last 4 bars, this is just effects of age. There are some glycans which go up. These are the pro-inflammatory glycans. Glycans which suppress inflammation, they go down. And people with a disease, they look similar to healthy people, but who are much older. And often this actually happens before the disease develops. Because if you remember from the beginning, these glycans are functional effectors. They're molecular drivers of inflammation, and inflammation is underlying many chronic diseases which are burdening the society today. So the big picture is can we prevent, can we postpone these diseases by acting early enough? Because what normally happens is that people go to hospital when something stops functioning, when you have pain somewhere in your organism, you go to the hospital, you get a diagnosis, but this is beyond the point of no return. Usually these chronic diseases are chronic because you can't cure them. So you stay with the disease, you are just trying to take care of the symptoms. But this is not 1-0 transition. It is not going from healthy to being ill tomorrow. This is a process which takes even over a decade, where first there are molecular drivers, which are then compensated, and things are losing their compensatory power, and eventually you end up ill. But if we act early, if we find these drivers, while a simple preventive lifestyle intervention, maybe something what was shown in a previous presentation, just a weight loss, can change them, or maybe early pharmacological intervention, then we can prevent or postpone disease. So this is kind of a big picture, and glycans are here very good markers because they very often change before any other disease symptoms. And for example, one of the examples is this pandemic that we are now still living in. The major risk factor is age. So old people get severely ill, young people generally don't, but it's actually biological age which is the main driver, not chronological. Because often what we see when we see the young people being severely ill, these are the metabolically frail individuals. And on a figure, this is the youngest victim in North Dakota. She was only 17, and definitely you can see that she was not healthy. Although obesity is now accepted as normal, obesity is not healthy. And we have to think, what can we do to improve our health and then avoid severe consequences? And our studies have shown that people with older glycom have a higher chance of developing the severe COVID-19, and unpublished, but very soon to be published, also people who will have a fatal outcome. They're changing their IgG glycom much faster than people who will have less severe consequences of COVID. And this is something what David Sinclair and I published over a year ago in our editorial in Aging, where we said that actually it's the biomarkers of biological age we should be more predictive, because, and then the glycans are very good example here, because they integrate genetic, epigenetic, and environmental factors into a simple index which can be quantified. You can take out the molecules, you can cut them off, you can label them, you can measure them, and you can see what is the current situation. But COVID is just one of the examples. I think the most prominent example we have found are the cardiovascular diseases, where in our initial study published a couple of years ago, we studied over 3,500 people, and we showed that IgG glycom associates with the cardiovascular disease the risk score, so the risk of future cardiovascular events. In a second step, we analyzed the prospective study, 20,000 people, blood samples collected 30 years ago, followed up clinically. We knew who will and who will not develop the heart attack or stroke. Look at the glycans, and glycans were as predictive as the entire AHA score, and in women, only a single glycan was more predictive than the entire AHA score. The mechanism is probably by driving hypertension, because we showed that the glycans change before the hypertension develops. And in animal models, we actually showed that this can be prevented. So if mice are fed high-fat diet, they become obese. Their glycans on IgG lose sialic acid, they look older. And if you feed these mice with a MANAC, which is a dietary supplement, which is a precursor of sialic acid, then the mice do not lose the sialic acid. They do become obese, but they do not develop hypertension. So by feeding a dietary supplement, you can repair glycans in the mice and save them from developing hypertension. This is mice. We don't have a data in humans. In humans, we have only correlation data so far. Another very good example is the menopause. On this figure, you can see the changes of glycans in the different cohorts. These are 5 large cohorts in Europe. Blue are men, red are women. Men are changing mostly linearly, but while women have this bump around the menopause age. And what we actually see on an individual level, that, for example, a person who would have very good glycan age for years rapidly deteriorates. And this actually happens before any other symptoms of menopause occur. And then if you give a proper hormonal supplementation, this goes back again. So the idea is maybe women don't have to wait until all the problems develop. If they see just a change in a biomarker, they can start the therapy early and avoid this perimenopause problem, which is a currently clinically very severe problem because there are no biomarkers. So key question of today, can we revert it? Is there something we can do to change our glycans and prevent age-related diseases? Anecdotally, we have a lot of data. So with Joe in New York, he has over 150 people in his praxis taking glycan age regularly, checking glycan age regularly. In principle, in everybody we see that it improves with appropriate therapy. We are seeing the similar things in Europe. This is Tim Spector, professor of genetic epidemiology in London. He was good for a long time, then the glycan age deteriorates. He decides for a lifestyle change and loses 11 years in 8 months. If you're interested how he did it, there is Instagram Live here, which you can look. But this is anecdotal. We are really trying to do hard science. So we are looking for cohorts where people have actually done a study with a placebo control. So this study is a hormone intervention where the menopause was chemically induced, and then half of the group was receiving a placebo and half of the group was receiving estrogen supplementation. What happened? Women on placebo aged on average 9 years in 6 months, while those taking estrogen, this did not happen. And women who were initially very good in their glycan age, they changed the most. So actually, this is exactly the example which I have shown previously. So hormones work. Weight loss works. So we did a couple of bariatric surgery cohorts, and bariatric surgery is very effective in rejuvenating the IgG glycome. We have even had a patient improving for 37 glycan years in 6 months. Of course, not everybody changes for that much. And again, bariatric surgery is maybe too drastic for most of the people, but even the regular weight loss seemed to be working. We analyzed 2,000 twins in 3 time points over 15 years. And we have shown that the twins who were gaining weight were actually aging faster than twins who were losing weight in the same period. But as Jeremy said, in the last lecture said, there is no magic diet which works for everybody. We are all different and we all differently respond to different food. This was a study on 1,000 people on 5 different diets. And what we can see that on each of the diets, some people went up, some people went down, and this is way more than what we normally see in people who are not changing their diet. So there is no magic cure for this. You have to check and see what actually works for you. Even for some people, low protein, high glycemic index was good. The same for exercise. You cannot sweat out bad diet. Generally, people overtrain, and what we see negative effects. Too much training generally promotes more inflammation and the glycan age gets worse. Each of us can find an optimal way of training to see what is the best for them. Microbiome, extremely important stuff. So what you eat is changing your microbiome, and then your microbiome is affecting your glycome. Again, very individual. There is a crosstalk between the glycome and the microbiome, and the microbes respond to what you eat. Microbes bind to your gut glycome, and then microbes affect inflammation, which affects the glycome. So there is a very important interaction with the microbiome and the glycome. There are many, many research studies showing the links between glycans and diseases. We recently published a very good review. This book is extremely expensive, over 3,500 euros, but our chapter is freely available. You can download it here. If you're interested, I can email it to you. So to slowly bring this presentation to the end, what is the big picture behind it? What is the idea? So the idea is that we can try to motivate people to live healthier and to prevent diseases. Because in principle, we all know what is healthy, but we don't know whether this is healthy exactly for us. And also we find it hard to motivate ourselves to do something today which will benefit us in 10, 20, 30 years. So we need kind of a faster feedback whether what we are doing is good or whether what we are doing is not good. And the markers like glycan age can give us objective insight into something what we cannot see in the mirror. And the glycan age can give us objective insight into low-grade chronic inflammation. So much of this low-grade chronic inflammation we have. And this is a quantitative tool which can help us evaluate effects of different lifestyle intervention. So we try something and we see whether it works. And often I get asked, why would I do a glycan age? I'm afraid, I don't want to learn that my glycan age is bad. And the answer is simple. The soonest we learn that something is bad, sooner we can try to fix it. So one should not be afraid of having a bad glycan age at the beginning if this can be corrected. And as I mentioned, this is already in the market. Of course, I'm in a conflict of interest because I'm one of the founders. So you have to judge the facts by yourself and you have to listen to me. But this is something which you can do. You can go to the website, you can buy it, you can test it, and you can see how your glycans look today and what will happen with your glycans in the future if you change something in your lifestyle. And at the very end, I have to acknowledge that our research has been funded with over, now it's 22 million euros through different European and national and some NIH projects. And I have to gratefully acknowledge their funding. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Gordon. Very insightful as always. I'd now like to welcome to the floor Johnny Adams, CEO and Executive Director of Aging Intervention Fund, who if will be unveiling protein-based aging accelerate practical translation of their interventions into practice. Johnny, as always, it's yours.
Well, thanks, Franco. Today, I'll be talking with you about how we will help the most innovative researchers and companies accelerate the creation of exceptional aging intervention therapies for the end result we all seek. And that is a great many more years of healthy living. My associates and I do that in a number of ways, like with many kinds of biomarkers and objective measures of aging, and information and software systems, and now telehealth. Today, we'll talk about a protein analysis system, a protein clock. Specific proteins have been reported in multiple studies to change their expression levels with age. The protein clock is an analysis system to measure them.
Johnny, apologies for interrupting.
Use is to compare baseline and follow-up results to measure the effects of age management therapies. The expectation is that older people who reset their protein clocks to a profile associated with younger people will be healthier and live longer. In some ways, it's like DNA methylation and other types of tests, but different in that it reflects the effects of more kinds of activities, including DNA methylation, and is closer to the end result, the phenotype. And there are other ways to apply this technology for personalized age management and to drill down into individual proteins to find deficiencies and excesses. And there are ways to evaluate and help with specific diseases. The protein clock can be useful in evaluating biological age, but in my experience, with any clock, what's most important is tracking improvements after a therapy. It's innovative and a much needed marker, and this could be a game changer. And I now have a working prototype. So the plan right now is to take it to the next level, to evaluate and verify low variability among samples, and refine and further improve the process and verify that the process can be systematized to work in larger scale production. I've been working on this and its predecessor for several years. The costs of that good work was funded by the Aging Intervention Foundation, the Foster Foundation, and private donors. I have diligently worked without compensation. I want more healthy years and to make the world a better place. Your critical scientific review is most welcome. World-class scientists Benoit Lahallier, Tony Weiss-Correa, Maxime Chokarev, and Adiv Johnson developed the original protein clock, and they wrote a paper about it. The one I have is adapted from it. So let's take a look at that original paper. I'll now show my screen. Okay, data mining human plasma proteins generates highly predictive aging clocks. Okay, they did this test with 4,363 individuals. And if we scroll down, we'll take a look at just a small sample set, just 6 of the proteins with their values plotted against age. Scrolling down further, we see the learning set and the test set. Now, those of us who haven't met, and even if we have, it would be useful to take a moment at my background so you'll learn about what I've been doing well over 40 years to solve this problem of biological aging, and biomarkers and objective measures of aging have been an important part of that. So if you go to agingintervention.org and click return, it'll redirect to the website. This is the foundation, some writings, most of this I've done. But if you click on the background summary, it looks like this. It's updated regularly because I'm, like all of you, I'm constantly upgrading my skills and learning. Here is a new concept, aging metrics, and you should find this website interesting. It has a couple of tools that you could use. Also, a new initiative, Age Management Telehealth Physicians. As the name implies, clients or study subjects will meet remotely with qualified age management physicians. And I'm going to want to talk to many of you presenters about implementing your biomarkers. So Benoit Lahallier was the lead researcher on the paper, and he was kind enough to help me develop a practical clock based on his work. He's a real busy guy and very smart, and now director of data science at Alkahest. The process starts with drawing and processing some blood and freezing at -80. Then sending it to SomaLogic to have their proprietary SomaScan protein panel run. The panel evaluates over 4,500 proteins, and that's soon to be upgraded to 7,000. Data is extracted from the resulting digital report, then a computational process is applied to the most important proteins associated with aging, as identified in the paper. Each protein is multiplied by a coefficient to arrive at a score. Then these scores are totaled for each subject to arrive at a final score, and a lower final score represents a younger biological protein age. So for our next step, which will be a small scale project, 15 samples will be run. And we're now going to go just a little deep into the processing, but briskly. Okay, we'll just start with the end result. This is the ages and scores for 64 subjects, and if we plot it, we see roughly a linear relationship, and that's with some outliers, which is to be expected. And bear with me a moment as I reset. This is the original SomaScan output file. It actually comes as a text file, but it's much easier to manage if you convert it to a spreadsheet. The top is basically administrative detail. Then we see what looks like white space. And then we're getting into some subject data. And if we scroll to the right, up above, we will see protein information. Here is some of the proteins: CRBB2, beta-crystalline B2, CRAF, that's one of the members of the RAF family, and zinc finger and so forth. Now, if we go back down to the subject data, these are for each protein, these are the values for each subject. And if we scroll to the right and we keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, we will eventually reach 4,884 values for each subject. Okay, here are a couple of key files that Benoit sent me that are important in the final calculation. Here is the result of the very first subject I ran. This is a 55-year-old male, and we see these are the protein names. His score was a little over 17,000. Here are the scores for the entire test set that I ran, all 64. And again, we see it plotted against age. And we want to see how innovative therapies shift these numbers to a lower number toward youth. And, you know, my interest is practical application to evaluate the results of age management therapies. Okay, after successful completion of our next proof of concept verification, the new organization, Aging Metrics, will initially make it available as a research grade test to accelerate the work of the most innovative researchers and companies working on therapies that will get us a great many more healthy years. Maybe later on to FDA approval and broader use. Some of my specific interests are epigenetic reprogramming with Yamanaka factors and others, gene editing, senolytics, removing pro-aging factors from blood and tissues, and mitochondria therapies. Some of the innovative companies it will be offered to include Turn Bio, Life Biosciences, UVAM, Ocean, Altos Labs, BioViva, and Integrated Health Systems, Shift Biosciences, and Iduna Therapeutics. Some of the scientists include Rudolfo Goya, Juan Carlos Belmonte, Lord Lee Benner, MD, Harold Katcher, and 𝐁𝐢𝐴𝐧𝐠𝐞𝐲𝐢𝐭𝐲, Salvador Masip, Greg Fay, George Church, James Clement, and there are others, now and into the future. So much to do, so little time. We need more time. There have been some obstacles to overcome. One is the data and extraction process, which I solved. I've done a lot of that kind of thing with data in the past. The costs for the SomaScan range between about $650 to $700 per sample. I recognize that this is an international group, so hopefully you can convert that to your own currency, but it's, you know, it's kind of a lot. It would sure be nice if that could be brought down to something less. Although normally the minimum sample number is 40 for this test, SomaScan has generously reduced it to 15. Proteins where there was not an exact UniProt or sequence ID match between the output file and reference file, or where there was some disparity, were temporarily excluded before more thorough evaluation. For consistency, the phlebotomist would need to travel to each subject's location and draw the blood at about the same time of day and under the same conditions. And there are some post-draw processing and a high-speed centrifuge, portable centrifuge is needed, and cold shipping is required. Since we're in this for more healthy years, it will be offered to the most innovative researchers and companies at the lowest possible cost, and hopefully we'll find a way to offer it to them at no cost. And, you know, donors and others who help in any way will receive some regular status reports and some other benefits. Although, if you contact me, I'll be happy to keep you informed. And I'll finally, in closing, I'll just show my screen one more time. Again, the thing I focused on today is the protein clock project. Lots more detail is available. I'm available to make presentations to scientists, donors, investors, you know, any others, lay people. And I need a protein scientist on the team, one with deep experience in this arena. And also, again, I and the team help the most innovative aging solutions creators with things like biomarkers and objective measures of aging, information and software systems, and telehealth. And I'm easy to find. My name's Johnny Adams. Here are a couple of email addresses. This one is probably the simplest, and GRG, I check it frequently. There's my cell phone number, and here are a couple of websites. That's all. Thank you.
You, Johnny. Exciting stuff as always. I would now like to welcome to the floor Dr. Sonja Tomuska, who is a partner for strategic development VC and private equity at 𝐶𝐬𝐧 with an extensive background in precision medicine and business leadership from Roche, Novartis, and Abbott Life Sciences, among others. She will be delivering a talk on the biomarkers ecosystem in Switzerland. Sonja, pleasure to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Franco, for giving me the stage. I think now we had almost 3.5 hours of such an exciting discussions and discoveries in the longevity biomarker field. I think I am impressive, you know, to hear what is going on, and you know, I think we are certainly going to have a great, exciting discussion at the panel. I would take some time to also introduce myself. Franco and mainly majority, you know, of my background. I today am present here as a partner of 𝐶𝐬𝐧. It's a company based out of Israel with a global reach to US, GCC, and Switzerland. So we in 𝐶𝐬𝐧 are very passionate about innovation and bringing it to the next level. Also working quite tediously and focused on how we can apply technologies for precision medicine, and in that mission we have, we are actually supporting a group and portfolio of startup projects from Israel in medtech, biotech, and deep tech, and connect them with a business network in all these regions that I mentioned. And on the other side, we also provide an expertise for valuation of these companies and through their journey to pre-IPO, IPO, and trade sale. So that is what 𝐶𝐬𝐧 is doing. My passion about presenting at this event and really acknowledging now the changes and the movements in the human longevity biomarkers field is because of my background. I have a background in cancer diagnostics. I'm a molecular biologist, and did my PhD at the County Hospital in Basel in a very interesting project between the National Industry of Health of US, then Roche and the County Hospital in Basel. And that has been really, for me, a great motivational project in aligning, you know, all these three different pillars. I think will be important for development of any biomarkers application. And at that time, we ended up with a lot of IP identified markers that will eventually help the prognosis and progression of cancer disease in bladder and prostate cancer. So since then, I then joined the pharmaceutical industry for 20 years, doing almost the same, also trying to connect the academia and the research with the big pharma and being able to translate the research into products and therapeutics that's also diagnostics that can serve patients, and where we would eventually increase these cross-sector connections that are still missing. And now, I guess, with stepping into the longevity industry, we all understand how important it is. So this is, I'm quite passionate about the subject. I'm looking forward. It was amazing presentation that we had already now for 3 hours. And so I have the opportunity and the honor to present the Swiss ecosystem in the biomarkers field. Switzerland has been my home country for the last 20 years. I originally come from Macedonia, and I'm born and raised in Macedonia. So let me give you some insights and a few facts about where Switzerland is why Switzerland becomes a very important ecosystem in Europe, and why they are driving a very significant innovation into the longevity industry space. And yeah, I'm honored to talk about the longevity biomarkers ecosystem in Switzerland. The country is very specific, and the analytical agency has done an enormous progress in really mapping the field. So today we will have a chance to tell you the story about Switzerland and why Switzerland starts becoming a big player in the longevity industry. We'll talk about the biotech ecosystem in Switzerland. We'll talk about the biomarkers in longevity because Switzerland is copying on with a trend of developing biomarkers for longevity. We will talk about the AI ecosystem in Switzerland, which is highly remarkable, and Switzerland is leading in that space with the innovation and IP. And then we will talk a little bit about the longevity biomarkers. Who are they, and what are the current practical applications that are available with some of the work of these companies. And then we'll have the conclusion. We also are going to announce another conference that is coming to in Basel, where we are going to talk again about the longevity. It's just continuing the story about developing the longevity valley in Switzerland. So, summary of the small country in terms of the size and inhabitants. We talk about 80 million Swiss and 8 million Swiss, but we have in Switzerland around 700 companies in life sciences. We have 300 companies in contract research organizations. They are the people who are definitely running the clinical trials, preclinical, and there is a lot of action, and they are must-have into the life sciences world. We have already 15 longevity biomarkers companies, so the trend is growing in Switzerland. We have astonishing 500 companies working in AI. We have 250 biotech companies in Switzerland, and Switzerland is #1 in fintech. So having said all of that facts, I would like to start building the story about Switzerland in actually bringing the Swiss longevity valley. I think Switzerland has been recognized as one of the countries where the longevity can certainly have a good ground for development, majorly because of several factors. So they are very coordinated development of artificial intelligence center, and they are the ones who would eventually help to enable to shift the treatment to prevention, which is a core for all application for in longevity industry. We have an enormous cross-sector dialogue because of an AI, and I will show some more information about that, which really creates the field of cross-communication, avoiding the silo, and being more efficient in delivering really solutions. The Swiss government is very known in creating a strong policy around the longevity, being committed to establish framework and also direct investment into longevity projects. And then certainly Switzerland, as one of the European country with the oldest population, has certainly a big interest to neutralize the economic burden of the aging population. So that is why the longevity value in Switzerland started being a trademark and is building and attractive a lot of companies to work in Switzerland. Another big point, and I just like this graph because it just simplifies everything about Switzerland. So it's a strong economic policy framework. It has been recognized. It's an international financial center. It has a mature financial industry. It has an advanced biotech sector and progressive AI tech. So if you just put all of these pillars to one another, there is certainly an ecosystem and field that can support the fast development of practical solutions for managing the longevity. Another point about the Switzerland is that there is a Swiss personal network, and I think this is really big focus on the Swiss government to eventually establish this personalized healthcare and exchange of biomedical information between the academia and clinical practice. And in that sense, the Swiss Academy has a big opportunity to bring the personalized health in forefront on the research, but also in a clinical practice. We will focus now on the biotech ecosystem in Switzerland. So yes, I think it's interesting to see, and I think for majority of you, not surprising, that such a small country has a big contribution into the life sciences in general. So the Basel, it's been a center. It's also my home city, but I'm quite proud about Basel being a headquarter for Novartis and Roche for around in the group of 5 top pharmaceutical companies, and also has around 70 biotech companies. Then all the regions, and you can see this is really very well distributed in Switzerland. We have Zurich and all equipped with infrastructure to have biotechnology hosting in their regions. The analytical agency was very precise, and this is we are glad to have this report. I think that it is something that is state of the art, which we can really say which companies are working into the longevity biomarkers. And the majority of those, and again, focused on Basel. We just talked about Skylight, who has a disruptive technology and state-of-the-art scientific team. But there are also a lot of other companies working in the biomarkers field of aging. Yes, I think you all from Jeremy, that also from Gordon and Fedor, Johnny, everybody is talking about, that the complexity of aging and the longevity really requires a very close collaboration between different pillars. So this slide here, it summarizes all the 5 critical pillars to be able to develop solutions in longevity biomarkers. So I think we have the biotech companies, and we said earlier, we have around 600 biotech, 700 biotech companies in whole Switzerland. And they are the ones who are involved in big data mining, in systems biology, and all complex solutions. So this is where the whole development work of biomarkers happens. As the next pillar, quite important, is the biodata registries. And, here you can see several examples of this type of companies. These organizations are large-scale biomedical databases, and they collect detailed genetic and health data and samples. And that is must-have, when, trying to conduct and connect the biological impact and markers with available data. We have preclinical and clinical trials. So the CROs are an enormous, number as well, meaning that, they are the ones who are driving the clinical and preclinical trials. So it tells that there is a lot of activities happening in Switzerland. And then we have the applications and market solution. It's another pillar for the longevity biomarker ecosystem. These are the groups and companies who are develop solution of how can bring, what's the pathway to bring some of this innovations and solution to the market. And then we have a biomarkers of aging companies who are already well established and known into the market. So saying that, I think the common denominator and a critical one, and that's why we are going to show why Switzerland is successful into the biomarkers research generally, but also in longevity biomarkers, is that between all of these pillars, what connects them is the artificial intelligence. And therefore, this is where the story kicks in for Switzerland. Switzerland has a state of AI technology, which is, now world recognized, and I'm very proud, to hear that Switzerland is the first one in 10 top innovative economies by the World Intellectual Property Organization, and that placed Switzerland in 2021 on the first place. So that is something to be very proud of, as this index eventually shows and define the industries or economies in around 150 economies, and they really measure different indicators for the capacity and the outcome of innovation. So also Switzerland, in that sense, has been remarkably at the first place of global talent competitiveness. I mean, the talent pool that is because of the pharma, but because of the big number of biotechs, has been incredibly important for, again, for a lot of companies trying to build up their business here. A lot of funds and venture capitalists who select this because of the global talent competitiveness index. And quite remarkable is that we have 37% of all AI world-class patents are innovated in Switzerland. So the Switzerland has a high level of innovation output in proportion to the population. That's just a simple statement as it is. You could see how high into the graph. We have a peer-reviewed AI publications, and in Switzerland, having Roche, very proud of having be on the top of 10 companies in terms of AI patents in Switzerland. So that gives the scale of the potential that Switzerland has and know-how, and this map is just eventually amazing. Every time I like this, the analytical agency has an incredible way of showing the world that into one. And here we can say that we have in Switzerland into AI industry, have 500 AI companies that are managed in 18 categories. So the impressive part here it is of how widespread and how well integrated the AI know-how and AI mindset as well as knowledge is across 18 categories. So almost every sector in a Swiss economy and or actually in the Swiss ecosystem has been already having a part or a company that works within an AI. We as well have about 220 investors. So meaning a solid group of investors who are investing in building the AI industry in Switzerland. And we also have a non-profit and R&D centers who are part of, bringing the next level of innovation in the field of AI. So this is how the map, the mind map of the longevity biomarkers ecosystem looks like. If you go now then, since I thought, as already said, the AI, it's just a clear foundation for making progress in any research in longevity biomarkers. So we can already see that there are 50 companies starting their research into longevity biomarkers, really dedicated to this type of research. with a lot of investors investing in the field and academia again, starting building more and more R&D focused research in you can see, that we have a biodata registries applications, and all of these pillars that I have mentioned around has been also a part of the big longevity biomarker ecosystem. The biomarkers, and you have all spoken before to variability and the opportunity of the biomarkers, and how much are they the foundation to everything what we are doing. I started with this into my own research, really working on predictability and the markers who can tell us the progression of cancer disease early enough, so that we can either treat early enough and be aware of different treatment solutions. But in this list, we tried to just show the diversity and the complexity of the different types of biomarkers applications. So some of them are used to identify the increase and decrease chance of specific disease, and I think this is something that is quite fairly straightforward and known to already some time. We have a monitoring diagnostic biomarkers that add to the diagnosis of the disease. We have a monitoring biomarkers. We have already heard here some of commercial solutions that have been based on this type of biomarker application. We have a prognostic biomarkers, biomarkers that can give an idea of increased or decreased clinical event or progression. We have predictive markers. We have as well safety biomarkers, and majority of them we can cover later on with some examples of the companies working with this specific applications. So we are talking about now the biotech into the biomarkers. So we wanted to just give some information about the companies who are working on the biomarkers and highly strongly using AI applications. And Skylight, I think we have heard from Professor Vijay Tawari, who is the mind behind the latest disruptive technology that Skylight is having. And it is focused on machine learning based biomarker discovery platform. They have made a great solution. They also got one of the first awards for disruptive technology in Switzerland. So a company to watch for, and we have chance to see, to hear all the scientific knowledge behind it, and the power of data and information collected for years. Artides is also, another company who is having a nanomechanical technology, also focused on personalized diagnosis and treatment strategies. Again, it is an AI-powered platform, which it means, it increases the potential of, having a quick impact and scale up. And the deep breath intelligence, it's a very interesting company that is unleashing the full potential of non-invasive breath analysis for clinical care by applying AI to mass spectrometric patterns. So these are some of the disruptive type of technologies and biotech companies that are working in the field of longevity biomarkers. Biomarkers of aging, we've heard from everybody. I think today we have heard, why now it is important that we know much better and are able to predict and have an impact on the biological versus chronological age. I think what it matters, and I think it's very important to say that biomarkers of aging certainly are directly connected with the hallmarks of aging, and we try to have the 9 hallmarks of aging that include all of different pieces of potential genomic instability, telomere, epigenetic alteration, everything that we all know about the hallmarks of aging. And then, this was the basis for developing the biomarker of aging. So in that sense, again, here we would like to say that there are different types of biomarkers, which are based on the disease state, prediction, detection, diagnosis, prognosis. This is everything which leads us from sick care to health care and preventive medicine. Then we have biomarkers based on systemic level, which are molecular, cellular, tissue, organ, systemic. And then a big group of biomarkers based on the biomarkers origin. You're certainly familiar. We have already here some of the speakers who already have a test based on on the biomarkers origin. What also starts being important and a very big growing group is the digital biomarkers. Obviously, there would be, in my view, and we can discuss this topic a bit later on the panel discussion. I think what we are missing here, it's a very clear framework, regulatory framework that can help to scale up and bring these products to the masses and have access to patients. So biomarkers of aging, different companies. Again, you will be surprised, and this is still to come into the field. Genome is an innovative healthcare startup, and it's again focused with something very similar. This is what we have heard from Fedor in identifying the difference between the biological and chronological age, being able to eventually know the current status and if possible, manage it, improve it, reverse it. So I think these are all the open possibilities, and they also have an analytical algorithm that is testing multiple biomarkers. We have the Centauro with the machine learning algorithm, also, examining millions of data points with the human genome, epigenome, transcriptome, proteome, and metabolome. As in order to create an aging profile. So, and then we have a Speeden, which is a remarkable company, one of my also a very clear disruptive technologies, who have, the company and the team has an enormous background into health tech and fintech. And starting from that type of attitude of utilizing AI, they have developed optical and AI-based technology to analyze blood, urine, and other body fluids, and for the first time, not destructively and in real time. And that is a really true innovative breakthrough. So now we come to the pillar of the preclinical of the CROs, contract research organizations that are important. Without having the CROs, you cannot run anything, and no preclinical and clinical study. And I love this map. I have convinced the team to leave this to me because I think it's an amazing. It looks like a Google map to see how many of these CROs. And a number 310 on such a small map of Switzerland exist and are ready to generate data into preclinical and clinical trials. So again, this group is quite critical for the ecosystem. We cannot survive without it. And there are several companies that are working in this field, and generally, again, and this is why our underlying red story is or red button. It is regarding, the AI. AI is present in all of this category, which means it's really unavoidable to have to not have really AI enhanced research. So as you can see, there are several they're using different processing technologies, machine learning, deep sequencing, everything which is needed to be faster and efficient. The biodata registries is another pillar that we have in the Swiss ecosystem for longevity as important. Yeah, I think everybody will agree here, and I would like to address this question in the panel discussion. It is, I think what is missing is the clear connection between the type of data collected, which it can need to be organized and processed with a solid algorithms and then connected also with the clinical data, data from the CROs, organic samples and biobanks. So I think the biggest challenge in my view, and I would like to hear also the view of the speakers, of how are we going to somehow have programs that are going to collect, accumulate, and then integrate data coming from all of these databases using AI. Big biodata registries in Switzerland, also several examples. Epigenetics, is growing rapidly. It's one of the cloud-based AI-powered platform, and it is taking the space not only in Switzerland but also internationally, and does complex genomic and phenotypic, always genomic and phenotypic data sets. 𝐁𝐢𝐨𝐬 has been known as a market leader in human data science technology. They have been previously being a CRO, and they have grown as the next level of being an AI providing data collection, providing support into data collections, and an idea to enhance the precision, increase the speed and the scale. And the BioH is also a company that I'm very fond of. It is amazing that they have an enormous amount of, I think, 45,000 data of patients, of healthy patients, and they're working with partners. And we heard today the solution is to partner, to find the databases that can help to speed up the research and increase the speed up and decline the timelines to really have applicable solutions. So BioH is an AI platform that uses a vast of information to discover the molecular causes of age-related diseases. The company is working very closely, and I think this is one of the examples of biotech owning data, stepping in and working closely with a big pharma. So we come to the test of the application to the market. I think one of the things, as always, in the landscape, while we know that there are several of these pillars that are important of bringing the foundation for the development of biomarkers in longevity, we also need so to say, a machinery that is going to bring that products to the market. There are several of those companies who are developing the skills in networking, licensing, fundraising, M&A advice, consulting, software integration, manufacturing, and distribution. So that they have been quite important in guiding the biotech companies or the companies who have partners to this next level of access to the market. And these are the groups of several companies in that group who are having analytical platforms, both DNA and RNA-based synthesis. And in one side, they also contribute to the process of discovery, but on the other side, they have developed all of these other capabilities, and in that sense, are working cross-sector. Then we have the Biopass, which is B2B and B2G communications, so business to business and business to government communications in terms of licensing, software, indication, fundraising, everything which is needed. I think once you step into this business, the value of this type of companies is really huge. So let's move now to the longevity biomarkers practical applications. So practical applications, yeah, I think this is what we are talking about, and I think I'm absolutely excited to hear, the summary that Dmitry is going to do in his book, because I think the book has been based on a lot of facts and research and analytic data that exist to eventually build up the story about the biomarkers and the impact that the biomarkers can have in a foundation across the longevity industry. So the practical applications of the biomarkers are quite clear. So we can use them in biomedical research for all different types of purposes, and fundamental research, therapeutic evaluation, biomarkers, efficiency evaluation, and that's related to biomarkers who already exist, so to test them if they're still applicable. We have the biomedicine application in precision medicine, advanced diagnostics, longevity therapeutics, clinical trials. And I think very important piece, and I think we are going to hear also in the summary of Dmitry's book, then application in finance. I think, longevity industry has been an amazing, in how broad can it span, into our society and cross-sector. So the application of biomarkers in finance will be definitely another breakthrough, and not only impacting the financial instruments, but also helping de-risking investment. Has played a big portion into insurtech. In terms of prediction, not only on biological versus chronological age, but also predictions in terms of mortality and all of other, predictions that the insurtech would be very grateful to have. So AI-driven biomarker applications. So we have one, it's a core practical application, but where is the AI playing a big role? Because again, we all have to agree that AI and the biomarkers development is something that is a foundation for making an applicable practical product for managing longevity. And so in that space, we define them in 4 groups. We have the AI-driven precision biomarkers that can be multi-omic sequencing and continuous monitoring powered by big data analytics. And they can be AI-driven personalized treatment optimizations. That's what we've heard today from a majority of the speakers. There is no one solution for all. We want to have, an economically proven or imperative to have a personalized medicine, so that patients can be treated according to their needs. And there we have a big research in silico personalized treatment optimization. I think that's a big group. There are several groups working in that field. AI-driven personalized in vivo drug optimization, which is another way how we can use the AI, and treatment optimization based on patient genetic. We also have an AI-driven advanced prognostics in terms of the advanced biomarkers-based prognostics. We heard about several of those applications, and that's a field that is growing and is improving and is, I think, accelerating. And every time we got more and more information about the 150 biomarkers who are now into the field of tested for impact into the longevity. And AI-driven preventive treatment. I mean, this is something that I strongly believe in. It's going to, in my view, take some time to really generate the right frameworks and the connection between different sectors. But I think in the end, for me, would be the vision. We have managed in the beginning to say, and I think we will have the panel discussion, and we all say, that eventually the investment into the longevity industry and investment into biomarkers of longevity that are impacting the prevention in one way, but also a management of aging, I think will have always an economic impact. So the longevity, biomarkers in longevity as a fundament will in one way clearly have an impact on the derivatives, financial derivatives in different types that can impact the insurance companies. Certainly, you know, all this data that will be generated, also insurance companies own a lot of data for patients. So there is a big interest from them to understand how they can apply the AI into putting a portion of their data and generating applications that can help them, or models that can help them to better plan, you know, the insurance model. There is also, you know, longevity retail bank. I think as soon as we would meet, as one of the things, and that will come into my final comments, is that we certainly need a framework to put a framework around the development of biomarkers longevity, but we certainly need to have a clear direction in the investment that is going to be needed to speed up all the innovations that you know, everybody on this conference is already doing, so that to ensure that there is a proper financing to come to the end. And there will be key you know, findings for investment prospects. You know, as much as we know, as we said, the practical applications of the biomarkers in longevity are so high, so that they can be used to de-risk a lot of business decisions. Longevity stock exchange is another, maybe Dmitry will be able to tell a little bit more about this, but it is another longevity derivative that can be impacted by the biomarkers. So it's amazing how far the impact of the biomarkers discovery and utilization will go. So with this, I would like to conclude on you know, what we said today, and at least it is you know, also my assessment to all this analytical research that I have seen. There is a clear need to define efficient frameworks, guidelines, and financial vehicles to ensure investment and access to data to support the scale up of the biotech innovation in longevity. So for me, this is really one of the objectives, and I'm quite passionate about, you know, being part of groups that are working to set this up. AI longevity is a critical sector and driver of the industry, and AI can achieve tremendous results and accelerate timelines for tangible, scalable, real-time, healthy human longevity. We cannot do anything with AI as it stands. We can just learn how to really utilize it. Longevity biomarkers will create impact on financial instruments for business investment, risk prediction, and insurtech. And when people, and this is really coming from the Aging Analytical Agency, a member which I liked it. It's a quote to say, when people live healthier, longer lives, the aging workforce has the opportunity to boost the economic productivity and maximize longevity dividend. And I think this longevity dividend is individual, because everyone's health is a wealth, but it definitely has a big impact on the economy. And so I think what we learned today, and we will hear it even more at you know, the discussion that Dmitry will bring to the story of his book in Biomarkers of Longevity. Many technologies and methods for extending healthy human longevity, practicing preventive medicine, maintaining the optimal state of precision health are already invented. Even today, we heard how much of this is existing. There is much of that existing in Switzerland. They are validated and ready to use. Whatever, however, I think the biggest problem that will have to be addressed is the infrastructure to scale them up to the masses and ensure access. So as a last, I would like to say that we are not going to stop there. So since I had this great opportunity to present, you know, the development of longevity biomarkers in Switzerland, I think we are continuing with cheering another Longevity Meets Basel event that in this sense has been conducted by the Weizmann Institute of Israel, or WION. It's the business network of the Weizmann Institute. I'm a board member of that group, and so we would have a special event eventually composed of high academic research that Weizmann is doing into in the longevity field. We will have a panel of AI and deep tech, where Dmitry is going to present some of his work, because we need to set up the stage, and there we are going to have a pitch of several startups that are going to put the picture all together and finalize with a panel of a rather investor-driven group who are going to be showing their interest in, and at least giving their insights of how do they make decisions to invest in longevity and what is for them interest and priority in making this happen. So our event is called Healthy Aging as an imperative for science and society. I think it's an imperative for the business as well. If you have interest, please reach out. These are the contacts from the Weizmann Young European Network. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sonja. Incredibly stimulating and dense stuff. Thank you so much also for your kind words with regards to analytics. And I'm personally looking very much forward to that longevity and basal meetup in November, indeed. I am distinctly pleased to present our final speaker for today prior to the panel discussion, Dmitry Kaminskiy, General Partner of Deep Knowledge Group and founder of Aging Analytics Agency, who will be unveiling and officially launching here now his newest book, Biomarkers of Human Longevity, Data Science for Accelerating Aging Research and R&D, the critical catalyst for practical human longevity, tangible investment decision-making, and de-risking, which again is available for purchase as of this hour on Amazon and at longevity-book.com. I can personally attest to the fact on how much data-driven quantitative research, etc., as well as tangible activities this book is based on. I had the pleasure and the privilege of reading an early draft of it. So it is indeed my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the stage, Dmitry. The floor is yours.
Yes, hello, everybody. It's my great pleasure to be here today. Thank you, Franco, for introduction. Thank you, all the speakers who were speaking today for me. You provide very significant, basis, scientific inputs, and especially thank you also to Sonja Tomuska. She provided very thorough explanation about this significant diversity and range between scientific background of biomarkers, but also how they providing very tangible implementation towards even financial industry. So today I will speak about how practical applications of data science can significantly accelerate the actual aging research and R&D, and why the biomarkers of human longevity, the most critical catalyst for actual practical human life extension, human longevity, and why it is also the only one reasonable basis to design the modern investment analytics, which can, based on which investors can actually develop their sophisticated, robust, and up-to-date investment strategy and de-risk those investments. Just briefly about us, I'm co-founder and managing partner of Deep Knowledge Group. We have a number of financial vehicles and investment funds. We have in total 12 analytical subsidiaries under our umbrella, and we have a number of non-profit projects. Here you can see 6 analytical subsidiaries specifically focused on life sciences in our group, including Neurotech Analytics, including Deep Pharma Intelligence, and especially Aging Analytics Agency, which was the first in our group, and it was established already back in 2013 in London. So we are data science-driven financial corporation. We focus on knowledge aggregation, and longevity industry is our major priority. Today was released my new book, Biomarkers of Human Longevity. You can download this book through this website, longevity-book.com, and you can also purchase it on Amazon. And just in case, for all participants, speakers, and these registrants to this conference, the PDF version of this book will be provided free of charge in the follow-up email after this conference in the next several days. 1 year ago, we also published this book, Longevity Institute 1.0, defining the biggest and most complex institute in human history. In that book, we provided this Longevity Institute framework, and we also provided assessment of the current capitalization, the size of the institute. We are considering that it is currently, as if in 2021, $25 trillion, and is expected to grow up to 33 trillions in the next 5 years. There are at least 24,000 companies currently divided into 20 sectors in the global longevity ecosystem. Also, in the next several months, we are going to publish another 4 books, including practical longevity, including longevity financial industry, longevity politics, women longevity, which will be published by our partner Kate Bass. She will be speaking tomorrow on the topic of biomarkers for women health and femtech. And eventually we'll publish Longevity Institute 2.0. In the first chapter of my book, I'm highlighting that providing some very tangible inputs why, in particular, biomarkers of human longevity, the most critical catalyst to accelerate practical results in aging research, which is very extremely needed currently in longevity industry, practical results. This mind map, you can get access to this mind map through longevity.international. So you can see there are 24,000 companies, 9,000 investors, 1,000 R&D hubs, in total several tens of millions of people, and actually, I would say the most smartest people, the most intellectually advanced people are working in this industry. Aging Analytics Agency during the last 3 years was conducting regular analytical reports, profiling, analyzing, examining longevity biomarkers ecosystem. You can get access to these reports at longevity.international/biomarkers. Today, they have also released this recent research, this recent medical study, Q4 2021 Longevity Biomarkers Landscape. And there are 300 companies currently working in this field, which by very simple mathematics, you can understand that this is less than 1% out of those more than approximately 35,000 entities operating in the longevity sphere. And the point is that these 300 companies are crucial. They're extremely required for all those 35,000 entities operating in longevity industry, because this company will deliver very tangible tools to ensure that all those 99% of other companies and entities operating in field, including 9,000 investors, they actually will achieve positive and practical results. So the major point of first part of the book, it's that biomarkers of human longevity is the only and the most tangible tool to achieve actual practical results in human life extension and human longevity, extension of healthy period of life. It's also the only one tangible data science, mathematically quant-driven tools based on which the modern approaches for modern, sophisticated, robust investment analytics could be structured, and that should be the real reasonable framework for any rational investors or financiers to use for their investment decision strategies and just literally to de-risk, to hedge their investments. And again, biomarkers, we're quite sure that longevity biomarkers will be able to establish the strong basis to ensure that current longevity industry 1.0, as it is now, will evolve, will emerge in a sustainable, stable way towards next stage of development of this industry, longevity industry 2.0. In the second chapter of the book, I'm considering that the current longevity industry is having actual fundamental and systemic risk. Literally over-reliance on the research and success in animal models, in particular mice, but there is not enough evidence and not enough results in men, in humans. So in this chapter, I'm raising a number of challenging questions. What if neuroscience based on mice experiment will fail? And we need to separate hype, which is currently we are witnessing, positive hype. However, based on successes in life extension of mice, we need to differentiate from not enough success, practical success in human life extension. Again, I'm raising in this chapter challenge that currently well-established and common in biotech and current biotech industry practices, they might be actually considered outdated and not very well applicable for experiments related to human longevity. It is very well known that in biotech industry, there's approximately 90% failure rate in clinical trials. In case of longevity clinical trials, we can unfortunately expect the failure rate will be much higher, especially in drug discovery. Epigenomics agency a couple of months ago released this report. They profiled, they made quite thorough research on clinical trials landscape, profiled 500 companies which which are having ongoing clinical trials. There is this reality check on these trials. It's unfortunately the results are not very good in the sense that indeed this our prediction that failure rate in longevity clinical trials will be higher than on average in biopharma industry. We do see this that this is actually reality, and by our projection, the first actual success stories in drug discovery, clinical trials on humans, we will see it no earlier than in 2027. Actually, for that matter, will be required entire implementation of new frameworks, more modern, more sophisticated, more advanced, more robust, for much more precise, personalized longevity clinical trials. We are also, in the next chapter, we're considering how all these disproportions, all this uncertainty, absence of normal frameworks, normal metrics to assess, to predict, to analyze the companies related to longevity industry, how this actually impacts on public trade companies. And we're considering 12 notable cases of publicly traded companies. I think that most of you here are quite aware about many of these companies. So the problem is that many of them, some of them actually are having some at least intermediate, at least small results, but nevertheless on humans, and some of them have results only on mice. This creates very significant fluctuation and instability in the recognition. By the way, we in our subsidiary Advanced Investor Solutions, so we have we already designed specialized dashboard for we are monitoring 600 public traded companies which are having some solution related to longevity. So you can get access to this dashboard via this link on the slide. My point is that many of the companies which are claiming that they have some somehow related to longevity or even to life extension, they tend to have higher valuations at the private stage funding before it was, including at the IPO stage when they are becoming public. However, in my opinion, if the companies claiming that they are having something related to longevity, and especially if they are going to become, if they are pursuing to become publicly traded, there should be much more significant scrutiny applied to this company in terms of validating their claims. In the next chapter, I'm considering how implementation of significant, advanced implementation of biomarkers led to very significant success and growth of particular domains in biotech and biomedicine. And I'm taking as an example oncology. Indeed, in oncology, the implementation of biomarkers, it's very significant, very advanced, very well developed, very robust. And that is one of the underlying causes why oncology as an industry, as a sector in biomedicine, biopharma is actually developing with extreme growth ratio, and oncology is having very significant success in terms of actual treatments, actual saving lives. However, longevity R&D, aging research, it's much more complex compared with biopharma and including oncology, and therefore it's quite reasonable that if implementation of biomarkers in oncology is very significant, very massive, so we need to use this at least the same for longevity. In fact, in a much more advanced level. Regarding proposals, we are pursuing a reasonable skepticism, however, combined with pragmatic optimism for the longevity industry. And we are proposing quite specific practical methods, which are, by the way, already well developed in some other applications, but we are proposing to apply it specifically for aging research, for experimentations for human validation, safe validation. And we are mostly talking not about biomedical techniques, but more about data science, about artificial intelligence, about more bioinformatics methods. We're also proposing some specific ideas and techniques which can be applied not only for aging research, but also for longevity medicine. We are providing data and some recommendations in regards to most advanced companies operating in this field. Therefore, interesting counterparties, including R&D centers, laboratories, but also other companies. We would recommend to approach these companies, and to consider how they can collaborate and get, support from this digital biomarkers, AI platforms, companies focused on longevity. In the final part of the book, we are considering how biomarkers can serve as the major, underlying basis to establish more advanced solutions, to establish new financial instruments for sustainable growth towards what we made longevity economy 2.0. And in that chapter, we specifically considering the need to develop infrastructure, significant infrastructure to support shifts from experiments on mice towards human validation. We are also considering specific challenges and opportunities. We are providing some inputs on how novel financial instruments could be structured, how biomarkers can be implemented to significantly develop to advance insurance industry towards InsurTech 2.0. And we're also disclosing some plans, our plans in regards to of establishment of our longevity investment bank. Here's the dashboard which we're already using. This is already a working project. This is longevity investment big data analytics dashboard developed by our advanced Investec solution subsidiary. You can get access to this dashboard via this link under the slide. By this link, you can also get access to longevity derivatives and novel financial instruments. This report was published in August 2021. We're also considering several very interesting historical precedents for human validation. In fact, in our group, in Deep Knowledge Group, whenever we are considering any investment financial transactions, for us, human validation is the fundamental due diligence requirement. In other several chapters, neurotech and role of neurological biomarkers for human longevity and space tech, space medicine, we are considering a lot of convergences and intersections between neurotech, space tech, and actual longevity medicine and human longevity, because space tech medicine, neurotech, they're very human-centered. Just in fact that all space medicine is about protection of astronauts from extremely hazardous environments. But if those technologies to protect astronauts to going into deep space to establish settlements on Moon and Mars will work, those technologies will definitely will work also on Earth to let's say to extend healthy longevity for people. There was very interesting, extremely interesting in terms of biomarkers assessments between two twins, one of them in space, the other on the Earth. Tomorrow, there will be a speaker from NASA. I think he will give you explanation on this research, but this is very valuable for actual applications of biomarkers for human longevity. In our book, we're also providing some considerations, some practical results, where some techniques. So in first part of the book, I was many times providing my concerns regarding current stage of clinical trials on many, let's say, popular now domains of longevity research, aging research. However, there are quite a lot of existing techniques and methods which were applied during decades, and they are providing very tangible results. For example, 1 year ago, one Israel clinic made clinical study on elderly patients applying hyperbaric chambers, specific protocol. They achieved very tangible, very practical results, and I have access to some of the data, and I do know exactly that they indeed reversed the age of their patients. However, what they failed to do, during their study, they were applying very limited quantity of biomarkers, and with that, they couldn't normally document their, actual, really tangible results. In other words, if they would do the very same but applying much more comprehensive panels of biomarkers, they would achieve much more greater evidence. I'm using more advanced hardware rather than that Israel clinic. I'm using specific machine and specific protocol, which is used for preparing astronauts for the flight in space. This equipment also used by alpinists going to Everest by a number of Olympic champions. So I do know I'm measuring my biomarkers on these machines on my own body. Here are some results of my personal trainings. This is average daily training, but my maximum result is visualized here. In our group, in deep knowledge group, when we're and in general, it is our opinion, when we're talking about from investment point of view about longevity, financiers, investors, they should put their money where their mouth is. In other words, I think that it might sound currently controversial because currently there's this framework for safe, precise assessment of practical implementations of and validation on humans. It's not yet common, but in our view, the real tangible way how to ensure the actual financial growth of this industry, it's when people, especially decision makers and financiers, will start to apply in a much more practical but sophisticated and robust way some what could be named personalized experimentation of anti-aging techniques. In our group, we are having proprietary practical longevity subsidiary under umbrella of Aging Planning Agency, which is actually analyzing and aggregating currently existing solutions, which we're using on ourselves, or at least can use, and we're also providing those recommendations to our strategic partners. In the last chapter of the book, I'm providing my considerations on so-called digital avatars and how timeline for their technological development. So, and we are providing some inputs. What particular technologies can accelerate development of this digital avatar. So digital avatar is most significant assembly of currently existing biomarkers. In our opinion, currently, as in 2021, there are several companies which are having in their possession what could be named digital avatar 0.5, so kind of prototype of digital avatar. We can expect that some of them will develop their technologies towards actual digital avatar during next year. And approximately 4 or 5 years from now, we can expect that those technologies will evolve towards most advanced possible avatar. In our consideration, we are naming it digital avatar 4.0. By that time, practical validation of humans in very safe, very robust, very advanced, very precise, personalized way will be possible. And again, in my book, I'm providing information about a number of projects which can deliver such solutions already now, also for consumer users, for retail users. Some of those companies I actually were speaking today at our conference and will be speaking tomorrow. So I would highly recommend to pay attention to those companies. And my conclusions, so once again, data science being integrated with biomarkers of human longevity will serve as the major accelerating tool for aging research and R&D. And it is the only one of the most critical catalysts to achieve any practical results in human longevity. And it's the only most reasonable mathematical data science driven tool to design modern, sophisticated investment analysis for any tangible, rational investment decision making. Here's links to all the projects which I mentioned. Most of those information is open source, free of charge. So visit these websites. You can find a lot of information there. Thank you for your attention. I will be happy to answer some additional questions during the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Dmitry. Simply incredible. And I would highly encourage all of today's participants and attendees to read the free PDF copy that will be sent out to them in the coming days, along with our standard post-event follow-up, including recordings, etc. I'd now like to welcome to the floor Sonja Tomuska once again, who will be leading today's panel discussion among the remaining attendees and panelists. Sonja, welcome once again.
Thank you, Franco. Yes, so I think we have a great chance indeed. You know, I have been again moved to the summary that Dmitry has given. I think the book and the story built behind the analytics and the data into biomarkers is fascinating. So I think it gives a good ground for every decision made forward. So do we have some questions from the audience, Franco, that we would like to address first, or how we would do the best? I obviously have some questions for the speakers, knowing all their work, and interest, but maybe we can start first addressing to give the audience a little bit presence. Yeah, we had 150 people or more, even, being very patient with us during all these 4 hours. So maybe there are some questions from the audience we should put first.
It's true. However, I think that the individual speakers that they were addressed to already addressed them in the Q&A box themselves directly. I will check and confirm that that's the case, but why don't we jump into some of your questions, and then I'll circle back if it turns out that there are still unanswered questions from the Q&A. Yes.
Okay, so I can start, from Fedor, because I think let's go through the alphabetical order of of the presentation today. Fedor, we have heard, I think, in your background in bioinformatics, you're the person sitting in between, the biological data and the AI. In my view, you have a big expertise, and you already have worked on several on the aging clocks, which really brings the epigenetic being in the center of the research. So can you, I was just wondering, still we are missing, indeed, a connection between the different sources, normalization of the data. What is for you the biggest challenge, in making these products being also widely acceptable or being scaled to a mass that can make a difference? How do you see, your innovation in that sense going to the next level?
Yes, thank you, Sam, for these wonderful questions. Speaking of the biggest challenge to creating the infrastructure for proper, longevity intervention development and implementation for the masses, I believe the greatest obstacle right now is awareness. Since we are the people in the know, right? We work with this longevity medicine thing, with life extension technologies. We know all about it. We write articles, books, and join conferences to discuss these issues. But the general public, they are not that well aware of what is going on. But more importantly, I think that rather than the opinion of the general public, it is much more impactful to influence the opinion of physicians, of the medical professionals, because they're actually the people who can tell I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 people that longevity medicine is a great thing, and I suggest you start doing this, and here is a number of geroprotectors. Well, you don't know what geroprotectors are? Here are the materials, and if you want, I can explain it to you, because, I believe that the focus on the medical applications and, the medical personnel who are actually going to implement these longevity medicine paradigm into reality, they have the power of, I would not say so much as decision making, not all of them definitely, but informing the people who can see the benefit in longevity approaches and life extension technology. That is what I would say the greatest obstacle and the greatest way to introduce longevity technology to the world.
Okay, so I see we would need to have some kind of educational programs, business to government, whatever tools one can use to eventually being able to clearly share the value proposition and the impact. Is it something that we could do to really show the impact? I know you need to generate the data. It still needs to be some longitudinal data and more data to create that. But do you think that maybe the frequent communications and panels in that discussion? I'm just trying to understand. In one way, I think we don't have the framework, which Dmitry was also mentioning in his book, to really make a structure of the development and focus in the development of longevity biomarkers as the solutions. So, but on the other side, not only financially, I think we also don't have the regulatory framework in that sense, because majority of this type of products, and me and you discussed, and thank you very much. I was very impressed of the studies that you've done. We still would need, if we would like to have an access and having reimbursement of this product, that we will still need to have a regulatory framework that kind of recognize the impact that your aging clocks have in one way preventing the early aging, and in the other side also guiding to influence and adjust the lifestyle.
Well, I believe this topic has been discussed extensively throughout this conference, and especially in this final word by Dmitry, the potential of longevity trials, and I think you have put together a nice, a lot of information, a nice collection of such trials on your resources. So they are probably right now the best bet when it comes to attracting the attention of the people that need to be in the know as well. And I think they can generate a powerful message. As I said, it is not necessary right now to significantly augment the design of clinical trials to make them longevity trials, right? Because anyway, blood samples are collected in these trials, and it takes, well, very little effort to predict the biological aging rate for all the subjects, and include these as an optional exploratory endpoint, right? So you can say that the primary endpoint is treating osteoporosis, or some kind of
clinical endpoints. Yeah, this is endpoints.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you can include additional optional exploratory research into these kind of trials, and then if this practice becomes more regular, I believe we would actually be impressed by how many trials might have an unexpected benefit from the longevity medicine point of view.
Yes, so they would be used as a part of the bigger trials to kind of collect some impact of the data they would do. You would think about, you know, not having a separate clinical trials, but use them as part of it to generate, right? Do I understand correctly?
Oh, yes, yeah? yes. To complement the existing structure, and once the evidence is there, and well, people track the success rate of clinical trials either way, and if they see with, well, the corner of their eyes that they're actually also measuring something called biological aging rate. What is that, right? And then this person who is possibly a decision maker, possibly a person somewhere in the high up in the healthcare organization hierarchy, they see this, and and hopefully they see something good and go, oh wow. So this whole longevity medicine thing is kind of big, and seems like it is really promising and can help lots of people, and make the work of thousands of doctors in our country much more efficient. I think I should investigate more. And yeah,
yes.
so this kind of education, right?
Right. No, I think the education will help in any case. I think we just need to change the perception of the longevity in a lot of ways. I mean, I have this mission into my conference that we planned with Weizmann. I think there is a lot of hype and a lot of misunderstanding of the real value, that longevity, the biomarkers in longevity in general, the research in longevity brings. But I think, I think with having, outcomes of tests that you just shared with me, I think that's already is a quite, a remarkable and tangible outcome. So, congratulations on this again. Let's see, what is there anybody from the actually panel speakers who would like to ask Fedor anything else?
I just wanted to briefly mention on the topic of longevity medicine that tomorrow, as a speaker, we'll be having Evelyn Bischoff, who, Fedor, I know that you work with.
Yes.
Yeah, she leads one of the leading longevity medicine courses for doctors and physicians, and she'll be with us tomorrow for any interested viewers who would like to delve into the exciting realm of longevity medicine a bit more.
Yeah, thanks. I think we will leave this for the next. Next story is it's anybody from the other speakers in the panel who would like to have other questions, so then I can go and talk and focus maybe on some of the topics that Vijay brought. Is there anything else from any other speakers? Okay, so we go on. I think, you know, the clinical practice is anyway, you know, a part here. We even have a lot of other speakers who can tell us, you know, how the longevity practically in clinical practice, you know, have been implemented. Vijay, on your side, you know, I mean, I think you have just also an excellent track record in, you know, evaluating the genomics and epigenetics. I think you are the brain and the mind behind the success of Skylight. And so I was thinking, you know, what will be, you know, how do you see eventually, and again, you know, I think we heard also from Jeremy that there is a need for partnerships, and can you tell us what is the challenge now for Skylight having all of that you know, quite destructive technology that they have, which is you know, to be used by private hospitals and all other institutions. What is the challenge that you see in this, in the research that you are doing currently with Skylight?
Oh, so that's, thanks again, Sanya. This is a very interesting question that you ask. What is the major challenge? I mean, in terms of biology, I think each individual is a different cellular machinery, because we all have different complex behaviors, complex molecular profiles, the complex environments we grow in. So at this moment, to get closer to knowing the full truth, we need comprehensive data integration.
Exactly.
So and this is something I find a lot of challenges. First of all, we are yet not used to be able to deal with so many multimodal data parameters. Just to give you an example, for a given individual, we can have behavioral parameters, nutrition parameters, age, sex, ethnicity variables, genetic sequence, epigenetics, metabolomics, proteomics, and so on and so forth, the gut microbiomes that we learned today. If you could generate a passport where we have each of these features measured for an individual and integrate it for meaningful outcome, only then we are able to talk about personalized medicine or personalized care for a person. So I think the essence of time right now is actually data integration. We need people who can integrate all such data types. And this is where the deep learning and AI has a lot of scope. So that next leap forward actually will lie in deep learning. The data is around. The GEO and CBI, all databases are full of data. There have been so many large scale projects. When we publish these big papers, we publish 1 or 2 findings. Rest of the data is deposited in databases. It's ready to be mined. So actually we need people who can just sit through this data, integrate and get meaningful information that's applicable to the majority of population. So this is where I find the biggest leap at the moment, Sanya.
Yes, and that's absolutely, you know, to the point. It is with my experience that I have from big pharma, because big pharma is all you know, owners this type of data, and we have a huge challenge to really connect to the clinical data, to the actual biomarkers. So it has to be a knowledge that exists in terms of, you know, utilizing the know-how and the mindset behind the AI technologies. Correct. In really making sense and connecting the dots of this data, so that you know, finally we can build up a very solid prediction programs. Sure. And I guess, you know, you are a specialist, and I you know, enjoyed our discussion when you have explained to me, which I thought, okay, that's the critical problem that always the big pharma has. So I guess what we need to work is this cross-sector collaboration, where big pharma realized that there is a know-how and there is a you know, well, everything which is more into the biotech space, it seems like is much more agile and quick. You know, so I guess, you know, we will definitely need to go into the same direction of opening the data. And Dmitry is referring to this in his book. I like this humanity-driven idea to say we need to pull all the data that exists and give chance to the research community to connect the dots and utilize based on their AI programs and the IP on AI and all their knowledge, then everybody will have the same chance to create something that will going to support the humanity. And I think as soon as we kind of, start developing this type of messages, and the book of Dmitry is containing a big part of that, I think that there will be a big policymakers, big initiatives at the WHO and all the companies, because in the end, is impacting not only the AI and not the longevity industry, but also the healthcare in general, all the innovation we are doing. So yeah, very glad that you are on this and that we will have you in Switzerland. So we'll definitely increase the innovation number of innovations, in the space of biotech and AI. Thank you, Vijay.
Just building upon what you said, I couldn't agree more with regards to AI and AI specialists being the critical bottleneck. The amount of data out there is mountainous, right? That's not the bottleneck here whatsoever. So at the intersection of that and a lot of Vijay's comments on multimodal data, et cetera, I did recall a question that was submitted in the Q&A, which asked for examples on human behavioral biomarkers. I assume what they're referring to is, non-biomedical, non-biological biomarkers, things perhaps like psychological aging biomarkers, which I know Fedor touched upon briefly. And I wanted to see, if Dmitry maybe wanted to discuss a little bit about the evolution of digital avatars past 2.0 and 3.0. I know that the concept involves the integration of some non-biological markers, things like regional, financial, even political, as bold as that sounds. I found that to be one of the boldest yet most tangible parts of that chapter in particular, and it segues quite neatly into that Q&A question. So Dmitry, I was wondering if you had any words to share on that matter.
Yeah, Sonja mentioned a very important topic about legal framework for clinical, clinical validation. Actually, Franco, your point about there will be much more advanced frameworks which are not now common, but they will evolve very quickly because two major inputs. Number one, most of really working techniques which are now affordable, available, many of them are actually not very expensive. Some of them quite expensive, but many of them are not expensive. They do not fit under medical treatments. They are mostly fit into what is not actual healthcare. It's about precision health. It's about not anti-aging treatments. It's about to preserve your health in the state of actual health. And for that matter, so the point is that in oncology and many actual disease domains, there are quite well-established biomarkers and well-established frameworks for clinical validation, and that is working very well, and oncology is a very good example. Now, there are a lot of doctors who are not dealing with health, but they're dealing with sick, so it is sick care, not health care. They are not doctors who are preserving health, but they are kind of, like some specialists who are treating some outcomes of initial underlying pathologies, which are actually then evolving into some diseases. Some of them are age-related diseases. When we'll be speaking about actual rejuvenation, like a reversing age, actual elimination of those consequences of pathologies, that will be quite tricky, and that will indeed require quite advanced legal frameworks for clinical trials. However, in my opinion, in the next 5-7 years, there will be a number of particular countries, most likely small technocracy-driven countries, which will want to establish more progressive frameworks for clinical trials in their countries to attract the most advanced, the most sophisticated, progressive biomedical companies to actually conduct some maybe experimental treatments using those legal frameworks. Now, in regards to digital avatars, every day we are bombarded, and billions of people are bombarded with marketing advertisement being financed by hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars on a global scale, with some stuff which is kind of considered as if kind of healthy or potentially healthy or something useful for health or healthy lifestyle, mainly coming from some food supplements or like biovitamins or wellness industry, gym, sports, so on and so forth. There are a lot of coaches, there are a lot of let's say so-called experts who are recommending that this is healthy and this is unhealthy, do this and do not do that, and so on and so forth. But it's their recommendations coming from like just from their from their theories, from absolutely abstract stuff. My point is that if there will be designed technology to develop your personal avatar, your personal digital twin based on full assembly of biomarkers, and in my opinion, we will see at least 5 companies by the next year, and probably several tens of such companies providing such consumer-oriented solutions in the next 2 years. So people, instead of listening to some coach or to some advertising, to some marketing, overload of information, they will just see at their, they will look into their personal digital avatars, namely into their personal biomarkers, and assess through that. They will become CEO, their managers of their own health. I'm not talking about treatment of disease. I'm talking, maintaining your health, because treatment of disease, it's the other topic. It's a little bit different from longevity. So it's about anti-aging treatments, which indeed is much complex, and it will require much more sophisticated, let's say, frameworks. But again, we will see evolution and progress on that matter. Going back to what is, there's access to multiple already now existing technologies, we need a little bit progress, a little bit more consumer-rated solutions from 5 to 10 companies, which we mentioned today several times. Some of them actually spoke here today. I think that deep longevity will be among the first in those list of companies. Tomorrow, there will be several speakers who also are presenting actually consumer-oriented applications. So people will be able to use those applications to actually consider what exactly healthier for their health. I also think that Johnny Adams, actually leading the group, which are making some, I don't know to what exact extent he will disclose it, but I'm quite sure for that at least for 10 years, if not more, they are making some kind of research and assessing, safe self-experimentation approaches.
Yes, thank you, Dmitry. I think the vision of having owning your personal biomarkers and having these biomarker avatars. I sound it. It's really sounds something that is visionary in one way, but also very easy to understand, because it's a big part of the precision medicine discoveries that are happening. So I think there will be a lot of progress on that level. And another point that maybe we can close then the panel discussion would be eventually, I think whatever we set, and I think I love the topic about the longevity economy. Yes, longevity economy is really in the matter of all what has been done and set in a lot of research. Because in the end, the profit here is, and what I said into some of my notes, the longevity dividend is what the society is going to profit by, the individual, but and the whole society. So, how can we, maybe for the people who are still on the line, how do you think that your research and, and also your products are supporting, that imperative of the longevity to eventually transform the investment into positive impact on the economy, and not only in terms of transforming health to wealth, but also, generally, what would be the contribution that this discovery and growth in the longevity industry can have an impact on the global economy? Well, yeah, we are talking about 15 trillion business of growing old, people say. So it must be, a big impact on the economy. Any thoughts around that?
I suppose I'll go ahead and just state in very general terms of all, longevity industry subsectors, verticals, technologies, etc. I can't think of one better positioned than biomarkers to push forward the continued growth and stabilization, as Dmitry mentioned, of longevity across the board. If you look at methods of optimizing practical healthy longevity, personal health, and becoming CEOs of your own health, etc., formulating and optimizing personal therapeutic and behavioral regimens, biomarkers of longevity is it. It's leading the front in that regard. I think it will continue or quite soon lead the front in terms of clinical outcomes in addition to consumer things. Dmitry mentioned quite presciently biomarkers' capacity to create, for the first time, a really tangible framework to de-risk in investments, to make the outcome of clinical trials more predictable, etc. So from that standpoint, it seems to be leading the charge, or at least have high potential to. And there are significant intersections between biomarkers and the longevity financial industry, which I know Dmitry has spoke at length previously about the longevity financial industry being the real bridge to take us forward, and to bridge the so-called longevity liquidity gap, and to bring, high cap institutional conservative investors into play at the exact moment when the longevity industry's continued growth and stabilization really need that. Apologies if I stole some words out of your mouth, Dmitry. I would have imagined you saying quite the same thing.
Franco, thank you. So probably I will add a couple of words here. Approximately in a month from now, by the end of November, we are going to publish the next book. It will be Longevity Financial Industry. We'll assess that industry, and the different cons and pros and implications, how it's going on now. So we are talking about something between 12 to 15 trillions of dollars per year. Then there will be, after that, there will be next book, Longevity Politics, but it will be not about politics in how it is considered now, but it will be about longevity technocracy, how actual governments and states can evolve towards much more progressive, stage, if they will be focused on preventive medicine to implementation of health longevity for their nations. And we are talking something about from 7 up to 10 trillions of dollars per year. And again, the book will be more about economics, economical implications, either of gaining that longevity dividend or vice versa, declining because of problem of aging population. And this is all about longevity economy. So we are talking about tens of trillions of dollars, whereas actual longevity medicine, longevity science, it's much less compared to those budgets. We are talking about probably around 2-3 trillions, maybe even less per year. But that longevity science, technology, medicine, it's like crucial to for longevity financial industry and longevity national healthcare systems. Now, for all that crucial, so we are, when we are talking about tens of trillions, like probably 25 trillions, the point is that 300 companies now currently working in biomarkers. This is the kind of whole grail, I would say. It's the tool, it's the actual leverage, it's the engine, it's the brains who will ensure positive, negative outcomes of all those 35,000 entities working in the longevity space, and all those big financial organizations, and even the entire national budgets. And for example, Japan is one very clear example with very significant aging population and kind of stagnating national economy, just because they had very significant problem for aging population. However, at the same time, their technology, their science, their advances on technocratic angle also quite significant. So that's why I would say they exactly can go either into one direction and fall positive or negative trajectory. So this is again about this longevity economy, which can go either to positive or either to negative directions.
Yes, this is exactly what my thoughts are. Indeed, because it's going to level beyond to, the applicability into the investment vehicle goes much level above to the politics and the economy. So I think with this, probably we can close, the session today, if this is now really within the time, because I think we have said we clearly outlined the impact of the longevity of biomarkers setting up the field across all the sectors with EI actually empowering it, and then I think the book that you have also gives a very clear a request for adding the network and the framework which is needed for all of this to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Sonja, for leading and moderating that stimulating panel discussion. We went significantly over, but I think that's a good thing. And a huge thank you to the participants and the attendees who stuck around for that. Yes, very, very much appreciated. I suppose that I will share some closing remarks to cap off today's event. First off, I'd like to thank all of today's speakers, panelists, and attendees for joining us for day one of two of this two-day conference series showcasing the present state of biomarkers of human longevity, once again hosted by the International Nonprofit Consortium and decentralized longevity industry knowledge and collaboration platform, Longevity International. A note, again, that everyone participating, attending, or registering for today's event or tomorrow's event will be sent the full and individual recordings of all of today's talks and the panel discussion via follow-up in an email in the coming days. I would also like to remind all of today's speakers and attendees that today marks the publication of two rather important publications. The first being Aging Analytics Agency's newest analytical special case study produced for Longevity International, Biomarkers, Longevity Biomarkers Landscape Overview, Q4 2021. And again, that is available in an open access format free of charge at longevity.international/biomarkers. And again, the newest book by Dmitry Kaminskiy, General Partner of Deep Knowledge Group and founder of Aging Analytics Agency, Biomarkers of Human Longevity. And a reminder, I didn't know it to be the case, but Dmitry has said during his talk that everybody who attended and registered or spoke and participated for day one today will be receiving a free PDF copy. So that's great, and I encourage everybody to review that comprehensively. I would also like to encourage and remind everybody present today to join us once again at the exact same time tomorrow, 5 p.m. BST, for day two of our conference. This will focus on sector spotlight and diversity of practical applications, drilling down a little bit deeper into specific use cases and sectors which were not addressed during today's sort of market snapshot focus. And indeed, for everybody viewing today to subscribe to future updates, additional upcoming reports, additional events, etc., at longevity.international. And also to stay tuned there for the individual conference recordings. We'll be posting them there in addition to sending them in an individual format as a follow-up to everybody that attended today. Thank you once again, one and all. I sincerely hope that we'll see you again same time tomorrow. It's been a pleasure.